Is it time?
It is time for us to do what we have been doing, and that time is every day.
We'll know in a very short period of time, but it looks like it could be something that will be not good. Believe me, not good.
I see issue with that. And again, hey.
You're not going to be able to insult your way to the presidency. That's not going to happen.
I don't know who created Pokemon Go, but I'm trying to figure out how we get them to have Pokemon go to the polls.
I'm Ted Cruz, and my pronoun is kiss my ass.
So when you think about it, there is great significance to the passage of time in terms of what we need to do to lay these wires, what we need to do to create these jobs.
America is a nation that can be defined in a single word. I was going to foot him.
Not good. Believe me, not good.
Oh, what's up, everybody? A pleasant good evening to you all, dissidents. Welcome, one and all, to the DueDissidence podcast. Keaton Weiss here with Russell Dobular, of course.
Hello.
I hope you all enjoyed that new countdown music tonight. Put that together for tonight. Some blues for you guys. That last number there was called the I make tens of thousands of dollars a month on Patreon, but people are mean to me online blues.
That's
boom, 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 boom. Boom, 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 boom.
Used to work for Bernie Sanders.
Boom.
DNC threw him out. Started a podcast. I started to shout.
My co-host disappeared for grooming young girls, so now I get to keep all the money on Patreon. I don't got to split it with him. I've been trying to frame Russell for all these years. I've been trying to get him to go to the can for something. I can't get him. It's Teflon, this fucking guy. Yeah, Teflon.
They call me Teflon Russ.
Teflon Russ. I can't get rid of him. Got to cut him. Got to give him his cut. This fucking pain in the ass.
Yeah, 45% it goes to the shareholders.
Oh, don't reveal the percentage. You're just giving away the family secrets. Oh boy.
Man. He Keaton is the founder.
I'm the founder, and I do most of it. I could delegate more to Russ for editing and I'm a control freak. It's the director in me. It's the writer in me. I have a problem with that.
Man. I mean, I feel like it's totally fair. For a while, I started doing the cuts because I felt bad, but he took it back when I went to India, and it just stayed that way.
Yeah, I mean, that's just the way I am. I'm just a control freak about that shit. So it's nothing against anybody. It's just
I relate
the way I am. Yeah, indeed. Right. Russell was a director himself. So, everybody, we have a wonderful show. Great crowd in here already. Please hit that like button, and please hit that subscribe button if this is your first time here. We got a lot to talk about this evening. Obviously, we were not going to get into the stuff that most of you guys are here for, I would assume, until we saw, a recent development come across the interwebs at about 2 p.m., which, if you know what I'm talking about, you know what I'm talking about. If you don't, you will soon. But we do want to thank you guys all for being here. Please hit that like button. Please hit that subscribe button. And if you want to support the show, our tip jar is out. Super chats make it very, very helpful, are very, very helpful. And also, we have our new YouTube memberships activated. So you should see a join button next to that subscribe button if you want to help support us monthly. That makes it a lot easier for us to keep doing these shows. Abiding 71, thank you for those 99 cents, my friend. We appreciate that. And Patrick Donahue from across the pond over in Ireland gave us £5 before going to bed. I assume we'll look forward to catching the show tomorrow. Keep up the great work and keeping it intellectually honest. Well, thank you very much.
Thank you, man.
Patrick. Oh, well, cool. There's a little feature in here on StreamYard that says Auto Star Super Chats. So that'll keep track of Super Chats for us. Wow, would you look at that?
Boy,
AI
it'd have been helpful if you had discovered that sooner.
Well,
Oh,
no,
is
I
it
think
brand
it's
new?
new.
Oh,
It
it's
must
brand
be a new
new?
feature. Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
cool.
I guess AI
Cool.
really is putting people out of work. Now we don't have to hire an intern for that.
Yeah. I'm actually going to answer this.
Don't. Yeah, we can't answer that. If people knew how much YouTube...
That'll get YouTube to shut us down.
Oh yeah, well,
They don't want word to get out.
It'll also get people to stop donating. If we disclose how much of this fucking how much of these super chats get eaten up by the bosses, then that's it. That's it for us. We got to keep a lid on that. You can talk about my finances all you want, but you fuck with the YouTube gods, you're really pushing it. Really pushing it. But yes, they take their cut. They take their cut. We kick up. We kick up. We kick up. Let's just say that.
They don't even let you vote on the new captains.
Yeah. We don't even get to vote for the new CEO. Google changed CEOs. Nobody asked us about that.
We're not shareholders.
No, nothing at all.
Apparently, I've heard. I haven't looked into this. I totally forgot. There's so much goddamn news that slips through the cracks, as they used to say on the Daily Show, back when it was good. I'm assuming that Trevor Noah didn't take that. I'm assuming that's gone.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
When news slips through the cracks. I heard something that a co-founder of Google who is connected to Epstein is missing now.
Interesting.
I saw that headline, but I didn't get a chance to look into it.
My uncle knew the guy who started YouTube. He lives out in California. I forget the guy's name. He knew one of the guys who started it. I forget what their name is. But yeah, we're seeing some guesses in the chat. Those are close, we shall say. Those are close without revealing it on the air. You're close. You're warm, as they say. You're warm. All right. Well, we have a lot to get to this evening. We actually have 4 main segments because we had 3, but then we added, obviously, the Briahna Joy Gray and Katie Halper thing. That'll be coming up a little bit later in the evening. We are going to pay our respects to the great David Miranda. That is going to be last in the program for very good reason. That is such a gutting story. I don't trust that I would be able to continue a show if we did that anything but last. That is a tough thing to recover from, and so we're going to do that last. But we do have some stuff to get to beforehand.
Just gonna highlight that. Yeah, you're right. That's where I saw that. So if Sabby Sabs did it, it's a reliable bit of information.
Okay. Yeah, I have not seen that. I haven't seen that. But anyway, let's get started with some headlines before our main segment here. Dianne Feinstein has returned to the Senate after a months-long hiatus with the shingles. Now, we don't want to speculate as to what else might be going on with her health. Could be nothing. She is, of course, quite old. But, these photos that we're about to show you went viral for pretty good reason. I mean, this is the senator of the most populous state in the country returning for work. This is who Nancy Pelosi said it was sexist to suggest that she might want to retire. Dianne Feinstein there, that's one shot, and then here is another photo of her actually inside the Capitol. Does that look like someone who's ready to continue her career as a legislator? Russell, what do you think?
You don't have her with the "Life Begins at 103" T-shirt.
Yeah, right, exactly.
I like that shot. No, we have some exclusive audio of her taking her first vote. Actually,
from the crypt.
Yeah. Pretty remarkable. I think that's pretty emblematic of the Democratic Party as a whole. But yeah, no, if a man were wheeled in to the Capitol looking like that, we apparently wouldn't be saying any of this. It's because she's a woman who has apparently only half of her face functioning. And, not too many brain cells left. It's not a laughing matter, but it's also not a secret. I knew people who worked in the Senate. This is going back 5-6 years ago. It's been an open secret on Capitol Hill for quite some time that she was losing her mind. Now it's just cartoonish. But the idea that she should not hang it up and let someone else finish her term is just obviously laughable. And, at this point, with the Democrats' majority in the Senate as being as narrow as it is, it's really a disgraceful thing. I mean, it really is. It's
this
like
is
seriously not good.
not good. Well, this is it's a party built around elder abuse. You got poor Joe Biden, who should have been put out to pasture a long time ago, and they're just propping him up because they are just afraid that there's absolutely nobody else who could even begin to appeal to Rust Belt voters that they have. That's like the best they have. Really, that's the logic. And look at this. I mean, look at this. And then they're going to go cry about democracy, about how much they care about preserving democracy. This is the same thing they did. Obviously, she was still in her right mind, but Ruth Bader Ginsburg, right? You care so much about controlling the Supreme Court, but when anybody said anything about her retiring, you were a sexist.
You're sexist. They put out the videos of her in the gym doing the reps. Oh no, she's good to go.
No, she's fine. The same thing with this. Look at this. Like, what a farce. What a farce. Pelosi had the balls to come out and be like, I don't recall anyone talking like this about men. Motherfucker, people been saying this about Biden since the day he declared.
Yeah.
What are you talking about? They've been saying that about Biden nonstop. Nobody said this about a man. The fucking president.
Right.
People have been saying this about for 4 fucking years.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Just extraordinary. Just extraordinary. Cool Blue says a better Dianne Feinstein than Adam Schiff. I don't know what that primary is looking like. I know you have Katie Porter in that race, Adam Schiff in that race. Didn't some other prominent California Democrat announce that they were competing for that seat? Also, I forget. Nothing comes to mind right away. But yeah, I mean, that's going to be a race to watch. You have the Russiagate libs versus the Yas Queen libs.
Yeah, Hive Mind. Does anybody know of a third candidate in that race?
Is there a third candidate? For some rereason, I thought, oh yeah, wasn't it Barbara Lee? Isn't Barbara Lee running for that race?
Is she running for that?
I think so. That's the third. That's the third. All right, so we're going to move on to our second headline of the evening. But before we do, Russell has some coffee to taste. For those who don't know, Russell, in light of Starbucks union busting tactics, started the DueDissidence boycott Starbucks sweepstakes. So we left it open to the chat for suggestions for Russell to replace Starbucks coffee with, because Russell used to drink the French roast coffee at home, but he wanted to replace that with a different coffee so that he could boycott Starbucks in solidarity with the workers. And so he is taking suggestions, and the winning suggestion will receive a comp Substack subscription for life. So Russell, what is the coffee?
But we got to lay some parameters down here, because I got some time, and I went back to when we announced it, and I'm not going beyond that, just from when we announced it. We got 44 coffee suggestions. So you motherfuckers are some pretty bougie tankies. I'm just going to say that we got 44 coffee suggestions. I don't know no working people that know 44 different coffee suggestions.
What do you think? This is the fucking Briahna Joy Gray show?
Exactly. Although I did get a lot of Maxwell House, Folgers, Bustelo, so there was that. All right. But because I got to go back, I got to actually write down who suggested what. So Donald Grab him by the pussy Trump is the first person. I only went by the first person that suggested coffee. A lot of overlap. He's the one who suggested Cafe Bustelo. I almost feel like he should get an honorary membership, because it was the only cheap coffee I agreed to drink. And I got to say, because I've tried all the other ones that everyone suggested, I got to say it's the best cheap coffee I ever had. That should almost be its own category, even though it's a category of one. Frank Warsham is the one who suggested Javalia. All right, listen, Frank, if you're there, or if you watch this later.
He's here, and he just gave us $5, so be nice.
All right, listen, not for nothing, man. Not for nothing, because I didn't want to waste it, because I paid for it. I was going to get through the bag. I tried to have that the other morning. Dude, I don't know. Are you trying to kill me? Are you trying to kill me?
Javalia is a pretty respected coffee brand. I mean, I haven't had it in a long time.
Maybe I got a bad batch. I don't know. But that tasted really like the coffee at the bottom of the pot on the old school ones that didn't shut off automatically, so it would like be burning the coffee for 4 hours, but then you really wanted that coffee, so you drink it anyway. It tasted like that coffee that's been sitting in a pot, like being reduced for 4 hours. It was like that. All right. PW is the one who suggested San Francisco Bay, which so far is the winner. Tonight's coffee was first suggested by David Ackerman. Tonight we are trying, let me get it from back here. We are trying Pete's.
All right. The Major
Dick. Yep. That is the one that people, if they named any particular variety of Pete's, it was always that one. Plus, actually, personal friend of mine and patron, Vincent S., suggested that to me as a Starbucks replacement. And he's a man of very refined tastes in spite of his gutter Italian name. So he'll appreciate that. All right. So Pete's, let's see. It's not bad. It's not bad. It's pretty smooth.
All right. You like the Pete's coffee? What are the notes? What are you getting? What are you picking up?
I mean, there's like, there's
shoe leather, blackberry.
There's like a dark roast, so it's not quite as sweet as some of these are. Some of these will throw in, you'll get a little bit of cocoa. Almost get a little bit of sweetness. It doesn't really have that. It's just like a smoky, smooth coffee. All right. So this one's not bad. It's not bad. As I go through it, I'm trying to decide if it's as good as San Francisco Bay.
It still sounds to me like San Francisco Bay is the winner so far. That's what it sounds to me.
San Francisco Bay is better.
All right.
So basically, San Francisco Bay is number one. Javalia is a war crime, and this is pretty good. So the Pete's Major Dickinson's blend, my rating is like 3.5 stars. It's like 3.5 stars on a 5-star scale.
On a 5-star scale.
That's what I would say.
Fair enough. Well, to those who do not win the free Substack membership, you can go to patreon.com/DueDissidence and support the show that way. You get exclusive video content as well as call-in access to all of our regularly scheduled live streams. Patreon members, paid Substack subscribers, and YouTube members are on the scroll right now. We added our new YouTube members to the scroll just before the show, so thank you guys all very, very much. All of your help is much, much appreciated. Go ahead.
All right, before we move on from this, because I saw somebody mention this. All right, so listen. Yeah, they had that when I went to the store. Yeah, that's like coffee trying to compete with energy drinks. I don't need that, man. I'm wired enough. I'm not going to do that. Yeah. Cost cannot be more than $14 a 10 to 12 ounce bag on average, because that's getting way too much out of the range of what I pay already. And I have to be able to get it easily. This cannot be like, I've got to send up a smoke signal and a scout is going to come on a horse with a bag of coffee beans. I have to be able to get this coffee on a regular basis.
Got to be doable.
So those are two parameters. Oh, and also I'm capping this at 10. I'm not drinking 44 fucking coffees. From what I can see, though, only 10 are going to fit those parameters, really. Because a lot of these coffees are very hard to get that people suggested. And then like Kona. Come on, man. I'm not paying $30 for a bag of coffee.
Well, somebody just recommended the Jamaican Blue Mountain. That's very good, but that's also pricey as well.
Yeah, no. It had no more than $14 a bag.
Right, exactly. This is not the bad faith show, right?
Yeah, we don't have it going on like that. We don't sip martinis while talking about the poor.
Exactly. All right. Let's take a few super chats before we continue. Franklin, thanks for the $4.99. Does Caitlin Collins, who moderated the town hall, remind anyone of Crystal Ball before she hit the wall? Yeah, she did look a little bit like her. I could see that for sure. Thanks for the $5. Red Z, thanks for shaving, Keaton. Oh, well, thanks for noticing, Red Z. I know a couple other people notice as well. I got the shave done. Now I got to get the haircut, and then I will look like a totally new man. It's getting too warm to have hair this long, so I'm going to get a short haircut pretty soon. Yeah, here we go. Dean Sumo, thanks for the $2. Jamaican Blue Mountain. Let's go Knicks. Yeah, Knicks won. Knicks won. So now it's what, 3-2. They're down 3-2. That would be fun if the Knicks could at least make it into the next round. Cortex, thanks for the $2 for Babyface. Well, thank you, Cortex. See, somebody else did notice. I look a lot younger with no facial hair and with short hair. Wait till you see me next week. Pearls before swine, Russell. Pearls before swine.
Listen, man. If I didn't know better, I would think you're the psycho who's trying to kill me.
He's got a few. Red Z, thanks for the $2. Keaton, you look younger. What's your emo band's name? Haha, no emo band for me. No, sir. No, sir. I'm a blues guy, as you could tell. As you could tell from that opening countdown. But thank you. Thank you guys for noticing. I am clean shaven. Nicole Vance, thanks for the super sticker. We appreciate you very much. Oh, this is great that it automatically stars the super chats. Now we know we're not going to miss anyone's super chat because now it stars it for us. So how do you like that? Look at that technology. Look at that technology. All right.
Now you know if we miss you, it's because your super chat was wildly inappropriate.
Yeah, right. Exactly. All right, let's go to our next headline of the evening, shall we? This is from New York One. Technically, the source of this is from the Wall Street Journal, but Wall Street Journal paywalls everything, and we are certainly not paying for a subscription to the Wall Street Journal. Marco Rubio plan would cut junk food and soda from SNAP. The days of buying junk food and soda with benefits from the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program could soon be over if a bill in the works from Senator Marco Rubio from Florida passes. What you need to know. In an op-ed on Sunday in the Wall Street Journal, Rubio called for the change while writing, "SNAP is in dire need of reform." Citing a 2016 report from the U.S. Agriculture Department, Rubio said more than 20% of all SNAP subsidies are spent on unhealthy food and drinks, and that taxpayers are projected to spend $240 billion on junk food over the next decade. Well, you know, taxpayers pay Marco Rubio's salary as well, so maybe he should start showing us his receipts when he goes to the grocery store, see what that tax money is being spent on. Even if you wanted to justify this as a public health measure, which I don't really buy, if I'm being honest. But even if you wanted to do that, I still think it is kind of ridiculous to draw the line at what? Candy and soda? As if what? Cranberry juice cocktail is healthy? Half the shit that passes for juice in this country is loaded with more sugar than soda. So, like, I mean, there's a reason why we're all so fat and miserable in this country is because we eat shit. Most white bread has added sugar in it in this country. So what are you going to do? I mean, I don't believe in policing the food choices of people just because you're technically paying for it. Like I said, you know, you give people food stamps, or in this case, a SNAP card to buy food. It ends there. If 20% of all SNAP is being spent on junk food, well, that's probably a lower percentage of money than the average person spends on junk food as a percentage of what they buy. I do people's grocery shopping for a living. Let me tell you, people eat some shit out there. You load up with fake cheese, the breakfast sausage with a million additives added into it. And yeah, the juice is sugar. Anybody ever have cranberry juice cocktail? Right? You think you're getting cranberry juice because it does have the vitamin C content of a cranberry juice, but it's only like 20% juice. There's actually more sugar in a glass of cranberry juice cocktail than there is in like a Sprite. So to me, stupid.
I mean, personally, I like my breakfast sausage with extra rat feces in it. It gives it that little crunch. Yeah, that's right. You know, you get the little crunchy pellets in there. So Keaton kind of turned me around on this earlier because when I first heard it, I was for it, not because I want to, you know, punish poor people. Obviously, I grew up on food stamps, so I can speak to this. And you know, Keaton was talking about the shame of food stamps, and I was like, yeah, well, you're not getting rid of that. Like once you're old, if you grow up as a kid on food stamps, once you get old enough to know what that is, you're gonna be embarrassed. right? When you're a little kid, you don't know any better. You just think it's normal. But once you find out, it's embarrassing. Now they don't have the stamps anymore. Now you got a card, which is almost worse because I got to tell you, 9 times out of 10, man, I don't know why it is. They got the wrong pin, some shit. People with that card hold up the whole line, and then the whole line's getting pissed off, and you're there with the food stamp card. So there's always going to be a stigma. My first instinct was to be for it because I'm like, well, it'll be good for poor people, man. It'll be good for them to not eat that garbage, right? Like, whether it's punitive, not punitive. I mean, it's going to be good for you. It's like making somebody quit smoking. I can't really be against that, right? Like Quit Inc., if anyone remembers the Stephen King story where the mafia sets up a quit smoking program where they cut off your finger if you smoke. 100% cure rate. And if you're not cured, they kill you. I almost wish somebody had put me in that program long before I actually quit. But you make a good point. Our whole food chain is so bad that it doesn't matter if you stop them from drinking. Like, you can't even get to whether it would be good to have them not eating garbage because they'll still eat garbage, right?
But
like you can't, because it's just other garbage, right? So you get this sugary juice, you get Wonder Bread. I mean, that's fun. Now, I guess you forgot, but way back I mentioned how you can't get bread without sugar, and people in our audience knew enough about making bread to correct me that you cannot make bread without sugar. But when you get something like Wonder Bread, it's so much added sugar beyond what you need to make bread. I found out when I was traveling in India, some of our European friends might know this, that McDonald's hamburgers in some European countries are classified as cake because there's so much sugar in it.
In the bun.
So what do? You tell them they can't eat a hamburger. Like, yeah, it's not that it's unenforceable in terms of its parameters, but it's useless in terms of the real impact. So what's the point of it? You're right. It's like just signaling we're cracking down on your tax dollars buying Snickers bars.
Right. It's just sending the signal. Hey, don't worry. Your tax dollars aren't going to a welfare queen buying Snickers bars. But then there's the other like right wing resentment. Like I heard talk radio guys bitch about this. They're buying steak and lobster tails with the food stamps. It's like, okay, so you don't want them buying junk food and you don't want them buying the expensive luxury food. So what are you going to have, a section of the store now that takes SNAP? Right. Like, it's absurd.
Yeah. You're right. It's not a workable plan.
Yeah. It's just a way for this guy to it's a virtue signaling, right? It's a way for him to signal to the base. See, we're not giving these people free food for nothing, right? They're going to have to eat their free food on our terms. They can eat what we say because we're paying for it, which, like I said, we pay for Marco Rubio's food also. So let's see what let's see what food choices he makes. All right, we have one more headline. Russell, this is yours. Do you want to share the screen here? This is very much your story.
Which one is it?
This is your Whoopi Goldberg superhero.
Oh yeah, my Whoopi story. All right.
Yeah.
So let's there we go. All right, you got it?
Mm-hmm.
All right, so this you cannot make up. Dark Horse to publish Whoopi Goldberg graphic novel about a menopausal superhero. Whoopi Goldberg teamed with Dark Horse Comics to produce another mainstream comic targeted at the wine ant demographic. The superhero graphic novel, The Change, features a self-insert character of Whoopi whose powers get triggered by body fluctuations in menopause. The book is billed as a serious book and not a parody, with a heroic Whoopi portrayed on the cover with blue and purple energy rising from her hand like a flame, for anyone who missed it. Because of her lifelong love for comic books, Goldberg decided it was time to create a new kind of superhero, one who might be a little older, whose body might be a little thicker, and whose breasts may or may not be the same size. Okay. I thought Storm had that covered. I always thought Storm had hefty lefty,
Asymmetric.
mighty righty kind of thing going on. She is also smack in the middle of menopause, which, along with chills and hot flashes, also give her some unexpected superpowers. The iconic actor, producer, and author matched minds and wits with Jamie Paglia, someone, quote, just as outside the box as I am. Yeah, outside the box. You mean like defending Roman Polanski, like that kind of outside the box? Is that what you mean? And thus the change was born. Isabel Frost is a woman who has spent her life as wife, mother, grandmother, a life she feels isn't all she had hoped for, with a husband who has grown in another direction. A college graduate with a degree in science, Isabel is an amazing gamer who plays with people all over the country, because aged grandmothers going through menopause all the time, gamers. With the help of her comic-loving grandson and irreverent best friend, she must learn to control her abilities and embrace her new identity as the change, both the change of life and her surprising and extraordinary superpowers. All right, so this is, file this under you can't make this shit up. Now I will point out comic book sales are down about 75%. Could these kinds of decisions have anything to do with it? Because this is not the only case like this. Very much like a lot of pop culture, it's been overrun by people who have been very informed by critical theory of various stripes in college. And now they're trying to bring this to products where the audience doesn't want them. Like, do I think it's really, a terrible idea to do a comic like that, maybe aimed at middle-aged women as a kind of funny thing, like a funny superhero? Yeah, sure, man. I mean, okay, as like a very niche thing. But that's not how they develop these things and market them. They develop them and market them with the underlying idea that we need to expand people's idea of what a hero is or what a hero looks like. And in reality, nobody really wants to see that. I mean, maybe, that small niche audience, but you're talking about a product that is still mostly consumed by teenage boys and young men. Like, who is going to read this? And then when it comes out, they're gonna cry that people couldn't embrace a hero with that identity. Well, yeah, man. I mean, it's not like our cultures throughout history have generally been centered around the heroic exploits of menopausal women, or men for that matter, right? I mean, that's not usually your hero's archetype, and there's probably a reason for that. If you were going to play it for laughs and market it to that demographic, I don't think it's a terrible idea. But if you're going to try to market that as a comic book for comic book fans, which it sounds like that's where they're going with it, who's going to read that? And that's kind of related to our Disney story, which we'll get to.
Yeah. Well, actually, the Disney thing, yeah, we have it. Well, you're going to figure out a way to shoehorn that in somehow, I guess, right? Because that wasn't a formal headline, but now we're going to go. That was just Russell wanted to gloat. Here, let's do that right now. Russell wanted to, since it came up, all right, and because we're going to start our main segments in a second, but what we on our predictions show that we did at the beginning of the year, predictions for 2023. Russell predicted that Disney would lose a lot of money this year, and he's very eager to gloat about this, especially since his DeSantis prediction's looking worse by the minute here. So let's
no, it isn't.
I know. I'm fucking with you. All right, just the year.
All right, I made 5 predictions. We both made 5 predictions in that episode, right?
Yeah, I think so.
But the 2 that I remember, I must not have cared as much about the other ones, were they're probably not as significant. The DeSantis one and the Disney one. I predicted that Disney, and look, I'm not proven right yet. Disney stock always bounces off the low 80s. Always. Ebola, COVID, whatever, man. Disney stock has when that happens, what it means is there's a hard core of investors at that level that will not sell it. Usually institutional investors, BlackRock, Vanguard, or like holding Disney stock, and they just won't sell. So you can't push it below that level, except in extraordinary circumstances, such as if those institutions decide that Disney is no longer a blue chip stock or no longer a good bet, no longer a good place for their money. My prediction was that Disney will break through that floor this year. So it hasn't done that yet, but it did dip almost 9% the day after they released these numbers. And what they showed was they lost 4 million subscribers this quarter. Now they're talking about the streaming losses narrowing by 26%. And this is only because they increased the prices on Disney Plus. They fired a lot of people and they cut back on their content spending. They still lost $1.1 billion year over year. And they still lost in the quarter, I think it was something like 630 million on streaming. Now, when you look at how Quantumania performed, you look at how I think their big tentpole later in the year, The Marvels, is going to perform. I think Little Mermaid is going to be a disaster because everybody who went to that preview audience, and look, when they invite you to that preview audience, you're somebody they can rely on to shill. That's why they invited you. And the people in that preview audience were all like, oh, she was great. She was great. She was fantastic. She was the best Little Mermaid I ever saw. But it doesn't quite capture the magic of the original, you know. Oh, but she was great. She was great. She was great. Don't cancel me. She was great. She was great. So those were all the tweets you had coming out, which tells me it's probably fucking unwatchable. So you put all that together, I think a lot of bad decisions Disney has made are going to come home to roost, and you can see in these numbers that has already begun.
All right, there you go. Registered. All right, so we're going to start our main segments of the evening. This was listed as one of our marquee segments until we had to bump it for the late breaking, of course. But Kentucky Representative James Comer has been leading a House Oversight Committee investigation into the financial dealings of the Biden family dating back to Joe Biden's time as vice president. Now, Comer came forward with some of his findings on Wednesday morning in a much anticipated press conference, so we're going to take a look at a little bit of that right now.
The committee has reviewed thousands of bank records from individuals and companies affiliated with the Bidens and their associates. It has received these bank records pursuant to 4 subpoenas I've issued to different banks. These were targeted and specific subpoenas, and each was different based on the information we believed the banks possessed. Every one of those subpoenas returned valuable information that had been unreported and that contributed to this committee's understanding of how the Bidens conducted their businesses. The committee is concerned by the complicated, suspicious network of over 20 companies we have identified the Bidens and their associates used to enrich themselves. Most of these companies were limited liability companies formed during Joe Biden's vice presidency. The bank records show the Biden family, their associates, and their companies received over $10 million from foreign nationals and their companies. Some of that money came from a Chinese company and went to Hunter Biden's company. Other transfers occurred with the help of Rob Walker, who then sent it on to different Biden family members. This is not how lawful businesses operate. Chinese nationals affiliated with the Bidens created limited liability companies in the United States and then in a short period of time transferred their interest to a Chinese company that sent money to the Bidens. This is not normal. Hunter Biden and his associates courted business in countries that correlated directly with Joe Biden's work as vice president.
All right, so he went on to claim that the president lied about not having received money from China, asserting then that Biden himself must have known such transactions took place. So here's a second clip. This is a shorter one.
Instead of being honest with the American people, President Biden has claimed since the 2020 election that his family has not received money from China. That was a lie in 2020, and he continues to lie to the American people now. The Bidens have received millions of dollars from China. It is inconceivable that the president did not know it. The White House refuses to correct the president's statements, showing the president is now using the federal government to run interference for his families and his own role in these schemes.
All right. Now, while no one denies the validity of Comer's findings, both liberal and conservative media alike have pointed to Comer's lack of a smoking gun directly linking Joe Biden himself to any corrupt dealing or influence peddling. We can give you an example of each of these, but Russell, did you have something to interject before that?
It's just amazing the way that they're covering this versus how they would cover the Trump family and how they did cover the Trump family. Jared Goldstein couldn't fart without them writing about a conflict of interest. And this, nothing to see here. No, nothing to see here. 20 banks, 20 LLCs set up, running money.
Wait, you're talking about Jared Kushner?
Yeah, Jared Kushner.
Yeah, would you say Jared Goldstein?
Yeah, he's my bookie.
I was about to say, is Kushner like a stage name, or is his real name Jared Goldstein? Is there something I don't know about that?
Jared Kushner constantly. Oh, he took a trip to Saudi Arabia. They could never leave it alone.
Jared Goldstein. I see why Ivanka kept her name, right?
Yeah,
Ivanka didn't become Ivanka Goldstein.
Yeah, that would have just been that would have gotten her kicked out of all the better blue blood clubs around Manhattan.
My son-in-law, Jared Goldstein, is a great guy. What are you talking about? I'm anti-Semitic.
What do you mean I'm anti-Semitic? My son-in-law's a Goldstein. My son-in-law's a Jew.
Yeah.
He's a Jew. He's a hook-nosed Red Sea pedestrian.
Yeah.
Whoever knows what movie that's from, I'll be very impressed. Somebody in our audience will. Yeah, you've got 20 LLCs set up running through 5 banks with an intermediary. No, nothing to see here. Nothing to see here. No. Chinese companies and Romanian companies just woke up one day and decided to launder millions of dollars through Biden family-controlled shell companies. The idea that there's nothing to see here is just absolutely absurd. And this is something that Taibbi really harps on, that the press in 2016 made an enormous mistake. They made an enormous error in judgment when they decided that they had a responsibility to go after Trump, because what if Hitler, came to power? Wouldn't you want to be someone who fought Hitler? Okay, well, first of all, Trump wasn't Hitler. These are not the historical circumstances of Weimar Germany. There are some parallels, but it's not a direct parallel. And certainly Trump is no Hitler. You use that as a justification to light your credibility on fire. And the problem when you do that is, in your effort to control the narrative, you lost all control of the narrative, because now nobody trusts anything that you say, because it is so obvious that you cover stories like this in one way when you're covering the Biden family, and in another way when you're covering the Trump family. And there was never nearly this much shit in terms of financial improprieties on the Trump family.
Well, let's look at Politico here. Portion from their write-up on this. The memo detailed payments to Biden family members and asserted that it is not credible that the president wasn't aware of his family's business efforts given the total size of the payments. It also did not show any way in which Biden's decisions were influenced by those agreements or that he had direct knowledge of them. And while Republicans have criticized payments as questionable, they stopped short of calling any of the activity potentially illegal. Comer outlined his next investigative steps on Wednesday, vowing that he would soon issue subpoenas to several more banks. He also hinted at subpoenaing Hunter Biden's business associates, including a gallery that has been selling the first son's artwork. He's also mulling a slate of potential legislation, including changes to ethics and financial disclosure legislation that would impact both president's family members. Now we have another slide here, and then I'll go to. This is the rest of it. Congressional Democrats, the White House, and their off-hill allies push back that Comer is repackaging previous public reporting. They argue that the Kentucky Republican is cherry-picking from a swath of documents he has received as part of the investigation. Representative Comer, has spent the last 5 months making wild predictions without proof, asking inane questions out loud and falling short every time, including today, said Abby Lowell, lawyer for Hunter Biden. Today's so-called revelations are retread, repackaged misstatements of perfectly proper meetings and business by private citizens. Maryland Representative Jamie Raskin, the top Democrat on the Oversight Committee, added that, quote, there's a lot of innuendo and a lot of gossip taking place. Oh, not like in the Russiagate thing. No.
Yeah,
and much of it is recycled from prior claims. All right, so that's pretty much to be expected from an outlet like Politico. More surprising, though, Fox and Friends gave Comer some pushback when he appeared on Thursday morning to talk about these revelations, probably expecting a softball interview. Instead, Steve Doocy gave him similar pushback. So let's watch a little bit of this.
Said that the smoking gun were these financial records that you were able to subpoena and got your hands on. They show that some of the president's relatives were paid more than $10 million from foreign sources between 2015 and 2017. And your party, the Republican investigators, say that that's proof of influence peddling by Hunter and James. But that's just your suggestion. You don't actually have any facts to that point. You've got some circumstantial evidence. And the other thing is, of all those names, the one person who didn't profit is there's no evidence that Joe Biden did anything illegally.
All right. So we don't have to hear Comer say basically the same thing that he said in the press conference. What's interesting is that Doocy basically lifted his question right from that Politico article. And the question that I think needs to be asked is, what goods were sold by the Biden family to these donors and what services were rendered? There doesn't seem to be much of an exchange here, which leads you to believe that, of course, what was for sale was political influence. I mean, what else could it possibly be?
Right.
I mean, Hunter Biden wasn't in the high-end art business back then, was he? I don't know how many paintings of his you can buy.
I don't know,
$10
man.
million, but that's a lot of paintings.
These woke motherfuckers, they change the terms faster than you can keep up. One day it's dick pics. The next day it's art.
Right. Yeah,
right?
Exactly. Who knows? But like, what else was for sale? What else could be the reason for these payments? Does anybody
it's like
have
the Clinton
an answer
Foundation.
to that? Right.
As soon as Hillary Clinton's political prospects were dried up, and anyone with half a brain saw that Chelsea absorbed all the cringiest qualities of her mother with none of her father's charm. So there was no dynastic potential there. All the donations dried up. If it was just about doing well by doing good, why did they stop donating to the Clinton Foundation? As soon as Hillary Clinton was no longer in line to be, there was no Clinton that was going to be in line to be a political power player. It's the same thing. I mean, and also something else he mentioned in the press conference is there was a Romanian businessman who was actually convicted for corruption later on, who made, I think they said 16 payments and stopped the payments right after Joe Biden was no longer the vice president. Very much like the Clinton Foundation. Once there was nothing to be gained there, the payments stopped.
They dried up. Exactly. Look, I mean, this probably, like the way this press conference was handled, the media response to it should answer the question, is this the bombshell that's going to force Biden out of the race? Obviously not. You're never going to have something like that, because even if you had something, they'd keep their candidate in the race. They're going to cover it up. I mean, if the whole email thing didn't knock Hillary out of the race, where she actually was under FBI investigation, where the FBI director actually gets on the stage and says, yeah, there's evidence that she did violate the law, but we're going to assume, for God knows what reason, that she didn't know she was violating the law, even though she's one of a handful of people who are like uniquely qualified to know whether or not she's violating the law in that way. She's the Secretary of State, for Christ's sake.
Right.
No, we don't see anything here. And the media, okay, exonerated. That's it. Done. On with the DNC. Let's get her nominated. Let's go. Like, there's almost nothing. I mean, the irony, I mean, you talk about Trump, you know, when he said that famous line, I could shoot someone on Fifth Avenue and not lose votes. Well, these politicians on the Democrat side could basically do everything up to that point and not lose any of the liberal media. Like, there's almost nothing they could do that the New York Times and, you know, all these rags wouldn't cover for.
Well, look what they did with Tara Reid,
right?
Which I've noticed is getting renewed buzz as we get into campaign season. A lot of people on the left, as they should, are bringing this up quite a lot. And to be clear, we believe Tara Reid. We've had Tara Reid on the show. So anything you want to say about Trump, which this will come up later with Trump's town hall, well, I mean, yeah, I think it's probably true of Trump. I think it's true of Biden as well. And right in the middle of Me Too, they didn't want to litigate that.
Right. Indeed. All right, let's take some super chats, and then let's go into the Trump town hall that's coming up next. Auntie Ann, thanks for the $5. We appreciate that. Even if it doesn't make the list, please give New Mexico Pinon Coffee a try. It's amazing. They have their own website, but I can't attach it. Okay, New Mexico Pinon. All right, interesting.
All right, this should be a new tradition. Whenever we hit 666 live viewers. Yeah, we hit it today.
Yeah, we got over 666. Yeah, hit that like button, everybody. And hit that subscribe button if this is your first time here. We have a big crowd in here tonight. Thank you guys very much for being here with us. Please hit that subscribe button. Get us to 9,000. 9,000 subscribers. That's our next plateau. All right.
10,000.
The Pew Bros Rio.
We're already over 9,000.
What?
We're already over 9,000. 10,000 is the next plateau.
That's the next plateau? Well, we're not
Aren't
over
we
9,000.
No,
No, we're at like 89 something.
Right, okay.
89.35. 65 subs till 9,000. Can we hit that now? Are there 65 of you guys in here who are not subscribed to the channel already? If not, hit that subscribe button. We'll get to 9,000 this evening. 89.36. All right, one of you guys just took my advice. Let's keep it going. Thank you. The Pew Bros, Rio. Where does the Briahna Joy Gray smack come from? Well, that's been in the news today, my friend. That's been in the news, so you'll find out. Don't worry. Hang around. Although I don't think he did hang around because we got another super chat from him. I guess he got upset. Tusker, thanks for the $5. I've always said we need a superhero with pendulous breasts. Yeah, indeed. Thank you, Tusker.
I mean, most of them have had pendulous breasts, no? I mean, Wonder Woman. Come on.
Pendulous?
Well, I mean,
pendulous means they swing, right?
Yeah, I mean, but if
most of them don't
you get her
swing.
out of that outfit.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Although swinging, you know, anyway.
She's got that metal breastplate holding them up.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. All right, so the Pew Bros, here he is again. DueDissidence equals old guy Vanguard. Talk smack and then ignore when questioned about it. Enjoy the $5. Bye. All right, well, thanks for the $5.
All right, thanks for the $5.
I mean, if you can't, I mean,
all right.
I got nothing to say to that except thank you.
Yeah, we've ignored it except for like the 3 videos we did on those fucking morons.
Yeah. Is your reference from Stern's Private Parts film? Is it? I never saw his.
No, actually, film. Wow. Did our folks not get that? That's the kind of thing they'll usually get. I don't see it. It's a ways back. That was from Life of Brian, actually.
Oh, okay.
There you go. I'm a Hebe, a Jew, a hook-nosed Red Sea pedestrian.
Yeah. All right. That's that. James Vanderzanden, thank you for the $1.99, my friend. Dems don't care about corruption. Extra Bulla 2024. Yeah, we haven't seen Extra Bulla in a while. I think he just posted a picture in our private little Twitter group that I'm a part of. He just got a haircut, so I don't know. Maybe he took a little break. He said he's coming back soon, but we'll get the new and improved Extra Bulla coming up soon. Can't wait to have him back. All right, folks. So once again, please hit that like button. Please hit that subscribe button. Thank you all for being here. Second segment of the evening. As we all know, last night at 8 p.m. Sorry, go ahead.
Let me just give credit while we're here. All right. Nazar G says he got the. I would have been surprised if no one in our crowd got Life of Brian.
Okay. So
I think I know our audience well enough to say. So Susan. All right. Susan Sarandon should play the role of superhero with pendulous breath.
She could rock a superhero. Yeah, she could still do it.
She could still do it. Listen, man.
She was up in my neck of the woods this week. She got arrested with some protesting restaurant workers. She was up in Albany.
Oh, really?
Yeah, she was.
Good for her. Well, the last. I'm gonna have to send you over this picture for the next show. The last normal thing I did before the world was shut down was I went to see. They were showing Shaft, the original Richard Roundtree Shaft, at the Apollo Theater with a live 20-piece band doing the entire soundtrack, including the Shaft theme, while the movie played. And Susan Sarandon was there. I approached her.
That's right. Yeah,
thanked her for her activism. I have some pictures of her there, so I will bring that in next time.
All right, cool, excellent. 8941. All right, we got 5 new subscribers. Let's keep that going, folks. Hit that subscribe button. Tusker says Bulla got a new job, but he told me he would try to stop by for the Norm interview. Oh, okay, interesting. Maybe that's why we haven't seen him around. I know he got a haircut. He posted a picture of his haircut. All righty, folks. So let's get on with the show here. As we all know, last night, Wednesday, 8 p.m. Eastern, former president and soon-to-be president Donald Trump sat down for a town hall interview with Caitlin Collins and a crowd of Republicans on CNN. And this town hall was a raucous time, to put it mildly. Obviously, many in the media freaked out at CNN for even doing this, and then those sort of cries were only amplified by the fact that the verdict came down in the E. Jean Carroll rape case, a civil case, came down the day before the town hall, at which point calls to cancel it became even louder and more common and more widespread. But they did go through with it, and there are a lot of clips that we have to play from this, but I just want to give an overall take on this before we get into the specific segments, because the general take on this, both from right-wingers and from many on the left, many libs, is that this was a big win for Trump. They said Trump looked more prepared than they thought he would be, more rehearsed than they thought he would be. He was stronger than they thought he would be. And I agree that he definitely came off well in overall. Like overall, yeah, I did think it was probably a net positive for him. But I also think he did expose some serious vulnerabilities, both in terms of him personally as a candidate when it came to addressing the rape trial, number one, and then on a more policy level, when it comes to the Roe v. Wade stuff, there are still some flaws that he has not quite made up for yet. And in doing this town hall, yeah, it was definitely a strong showing. It was a good environment for him because he had the crowd on his side, which meant that the moderator was a perfect foil for him. He was able to sort of shut her down fairly easily, especially knowing that the crowd, for the most part, had his back. Whereas, you know, in a more neutral environment, perhaps the moderator would have felt more empowered to press him further. Although everybody who's saying that Katie Collins didn't put up enough of a fight, I think that's kind of nonsense. I mean, what is she supposed to do? Not let him talk at all? Like, right. She was a thorn in his side plenty, I thought. Every time he brought up the 2020 schmelection theories and stuff like that, she would jump right in and say, no, you're wrong about that. Even on the rape trial stuff, she jumped in and tried to cut him off about that. I thought
because they had that pool of cream corn at the side of the stage. I think that built up expectations.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I mean, I thought she was, you know, as combative as she could have been. He did call her a nasty person at the end of it, which tells you she at least did a good enough job pissing him off enough. Like, I don't know what people thought she was going to be able to do.
Well, because she didn't rise to the level of nasty woman. That's what it was.
Well, she didn't do what? Did they want her to do what like Mehdi Hassan would have done to Matt Taibbi, which is just totally steamroll, not let him talk at all? Like that would not have
that you know what? That is the only thing they could have done that would have gotten praise for that town hall from that quarter.
But
that's the only thing they could have done.
They have to let him speak. It's his town hall. Yeah. So like they couldn't just totally steamroll him.
I actually,
whether he's Trump or anybody else. And so look, overall, was it a net positive for him? Yeah, I think it was. Was it the grand slam that it's being sold as by not just right-wing media, but a lot of liberal media, as you'll see? Very, very upset that this happened.
Yeah.
I don't think there's reason for them to be so doom and gloom about this at all, because there are certain fundamentals of this race that he was not able to alter in a way that would give you full confidence that he's going to side pocket Joe Biden. Does he go into the race the favorite? In my opinion, especially with these new poll numbers out where he's up by 7, I say, yeah, you got to give the edge to the out party in this environment, just like you had to give them the edge in the midterms. But in the midterms, they won a narrow popular vote victory and won the House back by a small margin, but they underperformed in a lot of key areas that are crucial to putting together 270 electoral votes in a presidential year, and I think those problems remain. So, believe me, I do not enjoy giving any comfort to the libs or the never-Trump GOPers, but I think they are panicking a bit too much. Not to say they shouldn't be panicking at all, but this was not an apocalyptic event for them. It wasn't a grand slam for Trump. That's my take on it.
I would say, what's her name, Caitlin?
Caitlin Collins?
I mean, I haven't watched CNN in so long. That's the first time I've ever seen her. Look, you know, I'm no simp for CNN. Just call them balls and strikes and talent here. You know, the mission that they gave her before she went on was a very difficult mission. They gave her the mission to push back on Trump, to be familiar enough with all of the Trumpanalia that she could be familiar with, so that she would have the fact set or the establishment fact set. I'm not saying that anything she said wasn't true. I haven't dug into it, but it wouldn't be surprising to me if some of it wasn't true. I don't know. But she clearly had mastered all of the narratives, all of the fact sets, so that she was ready with a response with anything that he said. She never got flustered. She never seemed out of control. She never seemed like he was getting to her. That was a tough mission. Like, they definitely told her she has to go out there and try to draw him into a trap, which this is part of what made the performance good for him. He wouldn't let them. You know, that where she most clearly did that is who would you rather win, Ukraine or Russia? And he didn't fall for it. But she tried. And you know, she kept her composure throughout, even though he was Trump. You know, he was doing his Trump stuff that has thrown off many more experienced and older anchors than herself. And you know, she kept her cool. She did what I'm sure they told her to do. Keep challenging him, keep challenging him, keep challenging him, keep fact checking him, so that we have a defense against the backlash we're going to get from our peers tomorrow. And she did that. She did exactly what she was told to do.
Yeah, and it was a tough assignment because CNN, look, the reason CNN had this town hall in the first place is because their part of their rebrand is to differentiate themselves from an MSNBC, right? They want to be seen as the actual, you know, centrist network with no Democrat slant, right? And so they figure, yeah, we'll have Trump on. Obviously, the primary reason for doing that is because it's good for ratings, and their ratings are garbage.
And their ratings were, I think, 8 times what they normally are.
Oh, yeah, it had to be. I mean, what the hell else would they show? What, Wolf Blitzer goes to Peru and learns how to cook a rotisserie chicken? They have these weird shows where they send their anchors to these foreign countries where they learn how to cook shit. Like, what the hell?
Anderson Cooper struggles with single fatherhood.
Yeah, right, exactly.
It's so relatable.
Yeah,
it's so relatable. Watching. We should just start calling him Anderson Vanderbilt.
Yeah, right.
Can we get that trending?
Yeah, Anderson Vanderbilt. Indeed. But yeah, so it was a tough thing because look, she couldn't steamroll him the way like MSNBC would have sent someone out to destroy him if they were going to do this, and they wouldn't do this, obviously. So they had to make it look like we're giving him a fair hearing, but we're going to be tough. And so, look, I mean, it was a thankless job. I thought she did about as well as could be expected. I didn't think she rolled over for him. Look, Trump is a very dominating presence on the stage.
And
so, like, what did they expect? Like, I don't understand what they expected her to do. Their real problem was that this event happened in the first place. So let's just go to a few different clips from this Trump town hall. We're going to watch a few clips from the Trump town hall. The first here is in response to the civil rape trial. And so let's hear Donald Trump talk about E. Jean Carroll.
I never met her. I don't know her. I never met her. I have no idea who she is. I had a picture taken years ago with her and her husband, nice guy, John Johnson. He was a newscaster, a very nice man. She called him an ape. Happens to be African-American. Called him an ape. The judge wouldn't allow us to...
Okay, so there's that. But then he says, I never met her. I took a picture with her. It's almost like that Rick James, Dave Chappelle. No, I didn't rub my feet on his couch. Oh, I remember when I rubbed it on his couch.
I mean, I don't know. I watched that. I don't think it played quite the way that you thought it played because it was close enough together that it was clear that what he's saying is like, she wasn't an intimate of mine. Like
Right.
she wasn't in my
I
circle.
ran into her once, but I never spent any
Right. I don't
time
think it
with her.
played like the Rick James thing. No, I didn't rub my shoes on his couch. I have more sense than that. Yeah, I remember one time. It didn't.
So he did have an encounter with her. He's just saying it was a brief.
He's saying, I don't
take a
know.
picture.
I didn't know her. It wasn't like,
Got it.
Yeah.
All right, here we go.
Put that in. Her dog or her cat was named Vagina. The judge wasn't allowed to put that in. All of these things. But with her, they can put in anything. Access
This
Hollywood.
was a jury of
anything.
9 people who found you liable.
boy.
for
See, so
sexual
look, she
abuse.
cut in there.
I,
I mean,
I
like,
wonder,
what do you want from
I
her?
wonder if the collapse of the Roman Empire was this fucking funny.
Was this funny? I'm sure it was. I'm sure it was. I mean, you read
she
about that.
she had a dog named Mamaritas Granditas.
Yeah. So she jumps in and she says,
all of these things. But with her, they can put in anything. Access
This
Hollywood.
was a jury
put in
of
anything.
9 people who found you liable of sexual abuse. Do you think that will deter women from voting for you?
No, I don't think so, because I think the whole thing, just so you understand, ready? I never met this woman. I never saw this woman. This woman said, I met her at the front door of Bergdorf Goodman, which I rarely go into, other than for a couple of charities. I met her in the front door. She was about 60 years old, and this is like 22, 23 years ago. I met her in the front door of Bergdorf Goodman. I was immediately attracted to her, and she was immediately attracted to me. And we had this great chemistry. We're walking into a crowded department store. We had this great chemistry, and a few minutes later, we end up in a room, a dressing room of Bergdorf Goodman, right near the cash register. And then she found out there were locks on the door. So she said, I found one that was open. She found one. She learned this at trial. She found one that was open. What kind of a woman meets somebody and brings them up, and within minutes, you're playing hanky-panky in a dressing room, okay? I don't know if she was married then or not. John Johnson, I feel sorry for you, John Johnson.
Mr. President.
All right, so there's that. Now look, this was
all right. You cut part of it where he continues and he says, and listen, if you're like me, and I think a lot of our audience is, you probably didn't watch this trial closely, so I don't know if he's distorting it. I don't know if he left things out. I don't know. I don't know if this is the story she actually told, or if he's changing it. I don't know. I didn't pay much attention to this. But he continues in this saying, at the time, I owned the plaza next door, and I'm a big celebrity. Do you really think I could just walk in the dressing room of Bergdorf's and do that? I mean, if that is the story, that's a reasonable argument. But then again, a jury, found against him, not on the rape, on the assault. So like I said, I don't know what her actual story was. So I don't want to say. I will say in terms of, okay, so look, that probably makes me like most people. Most people probably didn't read it. And I got to say, watching just that, if you don't know anything else, and I virtually know nothing else about this, he sounded credible. He sounded completely credible there.
Well, this is why a lot of people, took issue with the event happening, because of course this is going to be blockbuster TV, whereas the trial was not. So, so now, because of that, you're only going to see his side of it, right?
Sure.
But this trial, along with some of the January 6th stuff they got into, some of the election stuff that they got into, the classified document stuff that they got into at the end. One of the things that I think it was Ben Shapiro put out a tweet. He's like, one of the reasons why this was successful for Trump is because it was a Republican primary town hall. So you had a Republican audience who doesn't care about any of this stuff. And so when the moderator kept bringing it up, it was like she was throwing him lob balls right down the middle of the plate, because the audience does not respond to any of this. They think it's all bullshit. They think it's all nonsense. So the more hostile he was to her, the better it played in the room. Right. Because you don't have an audience who's invested in those narratives anyway. Whereas if this were a more moderate or Democrat-leaning audience, you'd have the crowd booing him whenever he said something like that. But this was a primary town hall. Don't forget, it's a primary election. So you had a mostly Republican House. Right. And so that's why that played well, especially when she brought up all those other things. Now, oddly enough, most of the stuff that we found interesting about the town hall did not pertain to the January 6th or any of that stuff.
But before we move on from that, I just want to point out exactly why Republicans, anyone who's not an in the tank, dyed in the wool, New York Times op-ed page Democrat doesn't take this stuff seriously. I'm gonna show you right now.
I did not have sexual relations with that woman.
That's why. You still got that guy running around, right? You still had him on stage at the DNC, even though he has been very credibly accused of rape by Juanita Broaddrick for decades. Right. Of course. So why do you think people are going to take this more seriously than you take your own instances of sexual assault and rape within your own party, like the man who is in the White House right now?
Right, of course.
What you did to Tara Reid, you threw any credibility you had on this subject out the window, if you had any left, after the way you covered for Bill Clinton and continue to cover for Bill Clinton to this day.
Yeah, well, obviously that stuff, I mean, I've spoken about all of the Bill Clinton stuff, at length multiple times on this show, but the Tara Reid story is unique in the sense that, while none of us, could ever be exactly sure what happened that day, she has more evidence to corroborate her story than 90% of all the Me Too cases that got people canceled and disappeared and fired and even charged in many cases, right? She had her mother call into the Larry King show at the time that it happened, saying, my daughter is working for a prominent senator and had this bad thing happen to her. She told her friend at the time. Her friend confirmed that she told her at the time. Right, when they had the FBI investigate Kavanaugh during his confirmation hearing, they were looking for exactly that. They were looking for corroboration from people that Christine Blasey Ford told at the time, this happened to me. In Kavanaugh's case, they couldn't find it. But that's what the Democrats were looking for. That's what they said. Okay, if we can find this, we have it.
That'll prove it.
And they found this. Tara Reid has 2 contacts, at least. I might even be missing some, but I know for sure of 2. Right? Who said, no, she told us about this at the time.
Right.
So if you're going to dismiss her out of hand, then what
King.
Credibility do you have? Of course.
Of course. So this is why when they behave as if they're completely horrified, nobody who's not in their bubble can take them seriously. When you have AOC going on, see, this is what happens when we platform a sexual predator. Well, you're going to endorse Biden, right? You're going to endorse Biden. Have you ever spoken out about Bill Clinton? I've never heard AOC say a fucking word about Bill Clinton. So
of course.
This is why nobody takes you seriously, because it's so clearly one rule if they don't have a D next to their name, and you guys all close ranks when they do.
The other thing about that specific portion of the town hall that I just found interesting from like a cultural perspective is that you really see the difference there between what ordinary people are sort of comfortable discussing and absorbing versus what the media tells ordinary people they're allowed to be comfortable discussing and absorbing. You got this guy doing his Rodney Dangerfield shtick about a very serious accusation. Let's not lose sight of this. This is a very serious accusation that this woman made, and he's up there doing a comedy routine about it. And yet you have, there was quite a bit of nervous laughter in that room, but people more or less went with it. You had people laughing. You had people going along with it.
It was a good bit.
Yeah, and that just kind of shows you how wide the gap is between what the media tells us we're allowed to think and allowed to absorb and what people actually think and how people actually absorb things, right? It's like the Dave Chappelle stuff. He goes up on stage, does a very, very anti-woke, anti-PC comedy special. The media flips their shit over it. They have walkouts at Netflix over it. People love it, right? People have this subversive streak in them. They have a sort of appetite for stuff that pushes the envelope, even if it's quite dark. And in this case, it is quite dark. I don't want to lose sight of that. Like I said, there's a very serious accusation that woman made against him. And obviously, there is a certain obscenity in going up there and doing shtick about it. But it worked. So what does that tell you? What does that tell you, right? Forget about, just take your indignation hat off for a second and, because Morning Joe was apoplectic about this and, CNN after the show, they were having a trouble. What the hell did we do, right? But what does it tell you? That it played in the room? Does it tell you that the people in that room are atrocious, deplorable people? Well, yes, according to MSNBC, that's what it says, right? But if that's your attitude, then don't be surprised that you can't put them away politically. Because if that's how you feel about them, then you're just at an impasse where it's just a game of brute force. Which side can overwhelm the other side? And because this country is so divided, no side can overwhelm the other side. And so you're always going to have this combat where half of the country hates the other half, and the elections are going to be very close every time because you're just at this stalemate.
I think a lot of that is what we've discussed about cable news and having a siloed media that gins up one side and gins up the other side and convinces them that probably their differences are greater than they really are, or plays up culture war issues to almost troll the other side, basically to get them more angry, to get them to tune in more, to get them to click more, right? It's all about that. It's all about stimulating the lizard brain and getting people very angry at the other side and seeing threats everywhere. So I think in a lot of ways, this is our technology destroying us, right? I mean, social media, cable news, it's just eating us alive. So there's that element of it. But I think also, I was watching a really interesting kind of social analysis the other day that was I mentioned this on the last show, that made the argument basically that as much as our circumstance is unique because of the technology, at the same time we're following imperial collapse patterns. And one point that the essayist was making was that in the final stages of the collapse of an empire, the elites live in the cities. They don't live out in the places where things are produced. So it puts them out of touch with reality, right? Within these cities, they're able to just construct a bubble that's completely disconnected from reality as people live it. And also, they're disconnected from the consequences of their choices as rulers, because they don't see the burned out towns in the Rust Belt that have been destroyed by their policies. They don't live in the places where things are made, where things are grown. They live in this completely artificial bubble where they're completely protected from the consequences of their terrible governing. That's where we are. I've never in my life, and I don't know if in American history, the elite class has been so completely out of touch with the American people. And something that struck me in this town hall, you know, we've talked about Trump as an archetype of the snobs versus slobs, Rodney Dangerfield genre. And there's that. But remember, probably the first American archetype, you could see this archetype emerge even in 19th century theater, in, you know, the earliest plays written in America. The Gary Cooper archetype starts to emerge. There are plays in the 19th century of a plain talking American confronting Europeans, or people who fetishize European fashions, modes of dress and culture. And, well, you know, a good old hand woven dress on my wife is good for me. You see this from as soon as Americans could articulate what they were, that was a cultural ideal. And as warped as it might be, Trump kind of plays to that archetype. He certainly does more than the people that he's been up against. And that's been a big part of his appeal. Having a guy up there saying, well, you know what? They're making idiots out of us. That is a classic American archetype. The plain talking guy who doesn't have all these highfalutin manners, who calls it like it is. Trump appeals to that. And there are very few people in the political scene who can convincingly play that role.
Yeah, no, for sure. I think that's very well said. Let's just knock out a couple of these super chats here, and then we'll go on to our next Trump town hall clip. Franklin, did any peasants care about women aristocrats during the French Revolution? No, but should we care about Jean Carroll? Really? Well, yeah, I mean, if her accusation is true, that there's reason to care about that, obviously. So yes, that would be my answer. Cool Blue 71, Rotisserie Wolf, a ratings winner for CNN. Yeah. I know that's what CNN.
That was CNN a good one, Cold Blue. Yeah. Good one.
Yeah, it's a good one. They send their hosts out to some country to figure out how to cook their food. That's their big ratings idea. Perrine Boom, thanks for the $5. Somewhat serious question. As one moves outside of mainstream politics, how do you deal with the loss of friends and the alienation that ensues? That's actually a very good question.
I don't mean to laugh. That's gallows humor because we've all been through it.
Yeah, no, and that's actually a very good question. I know in 2016, I went through a little bit of that just because of the shock of learning that people who you thought had your politics actually don't.
Yeah.
I could speak for myself. Obviously, this is not something that I recommend everyone do, because if everyone did it, we'd be out of business. But one of the ways I dealt with it was starting this show. I started writing about politics. We didn't do YouTube right away. We did an audio show for a couple of years before we even tried YouTube. But yeah, that's why that's what I did. I'm like, rather than argue with my friends about this and just make my friends pissed at me and piss off my friends, fuck my friends, I'll just start a show. I'll start talking about this, and then my audience will be my new friends, and some of them will be my new nemesis, right? But at least it's an audience, a new crop of people, right? It's not as loaded as having these conversations with like personal friends of yours. So that's part of why we started this. At least if I'm speaking for myself. Do you have an answer for that?
Okay, for me, I've been very blessed to have a lot of friends going all the way back to childhood and early adolescence. Those people ain't gonna not be friends with me because of my politics. You know, I came from a place and I could say a time where it's considered very uncool, shall we say, to not be friends with somebody because you disagree with their politics. And, you know, even the libs that I know who have been more tolerant of my change, they're older. They're older because that was just an American standard. Like, you know, you're Republican, I'm Democrat, we're going to be friends. Like people who came up before that became verboten, not all of them, but a lot of them will stick to it. The people who cut me off because of it, they were all people I knew through theater. Fuck them. You know, they were all superficial acquaintances or friendships that didn't really matter. So you know, if that's not the case for you, if it's people you really considered valuable in your life, that's a tough one, man. I don't know what you do about that, but you can't not follow your conscience You can't not follow your beliefs to maintain a relationship. If you can't have the relationship and be authentic, what's it worth?
Right, exactly. All right, let's go on here to, we've got one more here from Arthur. Thank you for the $5. Russell, don't forget the book or link on the last stream that you promised to share.
What was it? Was it what I was just talking about? That video? Is that what I said I was going to share?
Maybe. I don't know. I don't remember.
Okay, so I'll tell you what. I'm assuming it is the thing that I just referenced again.
If not, let us know for another $5.
So I'll tell you what, because we can't put links into the chat, but we'll put it into the description when we publish the video.
When we're done.
We can do that, right?
Yeah, we can do that.
Yeah, so I'll put it in. Just look for it.
Okay, cool. All right, let's move on. So, amongst the other topics that were broached at the Trump town hall was, of course, the abortion issue. So when I say that this town hall was a win for Trump, but not a landslide win, not a knockout for Trump, this is what I'm talking about here. So here's Trump on the question of what he will do vis-a-vis a nationwide abortion ban or nationwide abortion restrictions that go beyond the overturning of Roe v. Wade. So let's hear what he has to say about this.
The way I look, I think it's very important to say this. I consider the other side to be radical because the other side, under Roe v. Wade and other things, the other side, they're radical because they will, remember the debate with Hillary Clinton? They said, rip the baby out of the womb at the end of the 9th month. They will kill the baby in the 9th month. If you look at that crazy governor of Virginia from the former governor, where he said, no, the baby will be born, and then we'll decide essentially whether or not to execute the baby.
But, Mr. President, can we talk about what you would do if
No, but these are the radical.
All right, let's just pause it right here when it comes to the late-term abortion stuff. Oh, yeah, last show we did the Lance versus Tim Pool thing, right? Yeah, that was part of that last show.
All right, this is almost like fucking with people because we did a video about how horrible Ron DeSantis was because the woman had to horribly carry the baby to term. And we also did a video. Yeah, that was unviable. And we also did one about how Tim Pool owned Lance on the subject of late-term abortion. So the whole week our subs went up, went down, went up, went down. Like people who agreed with the one subscribed, then they watched the other and unsubscribed. It was pretty funny.
Yeah, but this is the trap that I think conservatives effectively lay for liberals and left of center people on this issue. And you saw a person like Lance walk right into it, justifying very, very late term abortions for non-medical reasons. I want to stress that, obviously, non-medical reasons. This is how you have Trump come out here and say a thing like this. Now, he says they want to do that, right? And you say, well, do they want to do that, or are they tolerant of that, or does this really happen that often, right? These are all questions that a lot of liberals and leftists raise. And look, they're legitimate questions. If you're talking about politics, right, you want to deal with what is actually happening, right, materially. But the other side of this is more philosophical, right? It has to do with morals and, yes, values, right? Voters do weigh these things. And when you take as stubborn a stance as Lance tried to take in that debate with Tim Pool, this is what you leave yourself open to, right? A mostly demagogic and, yes, mostly exaggerated, if not completely untrue in several different states, most states, but you leave yourself open to an attack like this.
Right.
So he's able to make that point. However, the reason I say this question overall was a net negative for Trump is what he follows it up with, because Collins presses him on what he would do as president regarding any nationwide federal government interventions into the availability or lack thereof of reproductive care. So let's take a listen.
It's not the pro-life people that are radical.
But if you are reelected and you're back in the Oval Office and you get legislation to your desk, would you sign a federal abortion ban into law?
What I'll do is negotiate so that people are happy. But the fact that I was able, I'm so proud of it. We put 3 great justices on the Supreme Court. We have almost 300 federal judges on the Supreme Court.
So just to be clear, Mr. President, you would sign a federal abortion ban into law.
I said this. I want to do what's right, and we're looking, and we want to do what's right for everybody.
But what's right?
But now, for the first time, the people that are pro-life have negotiating capability, because you didn't have it before. They could kill the baby in the 9th month or after the baby was born. Now they won't be able to do that.
But I think this is a really important question for you to answer, because this is something every Republican, including those who are running against you for the nomination, are being asked about, is would you sign a federal abortion ban into law?
And many of them are going to give you the same answer as I am. First of all, I am honored to have done what I did. And a lot of people said in 150 years, he's now the most consequential president because he saved so many lives. And I'm honored to have done it. And because of what I've done, we now have a great negotiating ability. That's what I do in life. I negotiate. We have a great negotiating ability, and I think we're going to be able to get something done.
What do you mean negotiating?
Okay, so that right there is not the answer they need on this question if they want to feel confident that they can win. Now, look, there could be internal polling that they look at and they say, well, look, obviously it's not good that we have to give an answer like that. Donald Trump wants an answer to this question that's going to allow him the greatest chance of winning the goddamn election, right? Donald Trump, I'm sure, has paid for many abortions out of pocket. He does not care about this issue whatsoever. He's looking for that sweet spot, right? And it could very well be that their internal polling says that their sweet spot is exactly that. Focus on late-term abortion, right? Sort of demagogue against that, because that will give you a certain pro-life bona fides with your evangelical base while giving you wiggle room to be more lenient when it comes to proposals like nationwide bans and things like this. On the other hand, Trump also said that Lindsey Graham's bill seemed like a decent enough idea, which is probably going too far for most of the country. Like, most of the country is against them on this. Now, they may feel like they have to be that vague in order to keep the evangelicals on board, in which case the calculus may work out in their advantage.
What are the terms for Lindsey Graham's bill again?
I think it's 15 weeks. A nationwide abortion ban after 15 weeks. Right? So he may feel like that's his sweet spot, because he may feel like, look, as much as it's taking a chance, he has to give the evangelicals something, because if they bail, his chances might be even lower, right, than they are giving this sort of mealy-mouthed answer. But I'll tell you right now, as long, and look, like I said, that may have been politically the best answer he could have given, but either way, as long as the answer from the Republican Party is that, the Democrats have a chance to win, right?
Yes.
You're not going to win a landslide victory giving that kind of answer. Now, they may very well win anyway. I'm not saying that the Democrats can and will win, but I'm saying you're giving them a chance as long as you are giving mealy-mouthed answers like that, because as we covered last week, if in the state of Florida, a woman is being forced to carry a pregnancy to term, even though the baby has no kidneys, and cannot survive, has literally a 0% survival chance once birthed. If people are being forced to carry those pregnancies to term, you are giving the Democrats a ton of ammunition. Rightfully so, quite frankly. I mean, we're not duopoly voters here, obviously, but calling balls and strikes, like, you deserve to be in jeopardy of losing elections if you're putting women through that. And so as long as they can't come out with a forceful rebuke of all of this 13th century fucking bullshit, then yeah, Democrats are in the game.
I think that in the end, he's going to have to find his way to a 15-week thing, but Trump likes to play this game if he can. It reminds me a lot of his answer on healthcare. We're going to have beautiful healthcare. We're going to have
people aren't going to be dying in the streets.
It's going to be the best healthcare. And then what did he do? Nothing.
Right.
Nothing. which I think
worse
people
than
will-
nothing. He went along with the
He
first
went
Republican
along
bill
with
that got
trying
to
to-
his desk.
right,
Like,
yeah.
fine, whatever. It's anti-Obamacare, whatever. Get it to my desk, I'll
Sure.
sign it. Just total laziness. Didn't bother looking into it, what it would do, whether it lived up to his rhetoric or promises. No, nothing. Just it's a great bill. Get it to my desk.
He likes being in the position of governing more than he actually likes governing. He doesn't like the act
Right.
of governing.
Right.
He
He's like
likes
the
to be
baseball
seen as
player
the
who
governor.
likes sitting in the dugout chewing the bubble gum,
That's
not
it.
actually playing the field.
That's it.
Right.
He doesn't actually want to do anything once he gets there.
Right.
So when Trump tells you something like this, what he's telling you is whatever a Republican Congress sends him is what he's going to do.
Exactly.
Right. So you gotta take your chances with what a Republican Senate is going to decide on this. Yeah, 15 weeks is the way they should go. But if they win a blowout victory in 2024, which is certainly possible, particularly if the economy falls into recession. I mean, people are already feeling the pinch. If you have that on top of it, if you have high unemployment on top of skyrocketing inflation, there's a good chance they'll win even with the abortion issue. And with a fully empowered Republican Party in control of the Senate, Congress, and the presidency, there is certainly no guarantee they will not outlaw abortion nationally.
Yeah, no, I mean, I don't think they'll go beyond the 15 weeks. I think that was the point of Lindsey Graham putting that bill up, but you never know. You never know. And as long as they are vague about this, people are going to be afraid of that. And that's going to keep the Democrats in the game,
Yep.
All right, so this is a question from the CNN Republican town hall debate that Donald Trump aced. And the only question is how much of an impact will this issue have on voters at the polls, both in the Republican primary and then if Trump does make it to the final round in November. Obviously, this has potential to be a very pressing general election issue as well. And I say potential because we live in the most propagandized country on earth, in which World War III might not be the issue that carries the day. But here's Donald Trump on the question, do you want Ukraine to win the war? So here we go.
Want Ukraine to win this war?
I don't think in terms of winning and losing. I think in terms of getting it settled so we stop killing all these people and breaking down this country. Now,
What do you, can I just follow up on that? You
but
said
one
you
of the
don't
things
think
you
in
have
terms
to
of
do
winning
is you have
and
to get
losing?
Now, that's amazing. I'm going to play that one more time because if you notice, of all the shit that was talked about that night, that was the biggest applause line of the night. That anti-war line. That I don't think in terms of winning or losing. I think in terms of stopping the death, stopping the violence. And you have a Republican primary audience clapping for that louder than they did for anything else. Let's play one more time.
I don't think in terms of winning and losing. I think in terms of getting it settled so we stop killing all these people and breaking down this country. Now,
What do you, can I just follow up on that? You
But
said
one
you
of the
don't
things
think in
you have
terms
to
of
do is
winning
you
and
have to get
losing.
you have
Mr.
to get
President, can I
Europe.
just follow up on that because that's a really important
Excuse me,
statement
let me
that
just
you just
follow
made
up.
there. Can you say if you want Ukraine or Russia to win this war?
I want everybody to stop dying. They're dying. Russians and Ukrainians. I want them to stop dying. And I'll have that done. I'll have that done in 24 hours. I'll have it done. You need the power of the presidency to do it.
But you won't say that you want Ukraine to win. You
know
said
what
when
I'll
you were-
say? I'll
when you
say
were in
this.
office.
I want Europe to put up more money because they're in for 20 billion. We're in for
Any pivots to that?
170, and
But
they
that's not
should
an
be.
answer about who
And they
should
should
win the war.
equalize. They have plenty of money. They should equalize. I got with NATO.
But I'm
when I
asking you
sat
about
down, I got
Ukraine
them
right
to
now,
put up
Mr.
hundreds
President.
of billions of.
Okay, so then he goes into, and we shouldn't be
Only as
paying
good
for
as your last envelope. You know that.
Yeah, exactly. That answer there, that was exactly my answer from the second the war started, which is, and this was what Tulsi Gabbard said. She said, there are no winners in a nuclear war. There are no winners in a global war in 2023. This is not 1917, 1918 anymore. A war blows up like this, there are no winners. Chris Hedges, war is the greatest evil. There are no winners in war. Everybody loses in war because war is hell. You can put this right in there. I don't think in terms of winning and losing. I think in terms of stopping the death, stopping Russians and Ukrainians from being killed. Now, look, this is one of the instances where I really regret that we're not on Rumble exclusively or not on Substack exclusively, because there are certain things I can't say on this platform that I'm tempted to say now. So I'll give you the very G-rated version of my answer to this, which is something I've said on the show a couple of times. Anybody who has a problem with what he said can sign up and go enlist in the Ukrainian resistance right now. Like, you can go fight this war yourself if you have a problem with that. If you're advocating for more violence because it's so important to you that Ukraine win the war, then by all means, put your money where your big fucking mouth is and go over there and help out. Because this is obviously the winning message on this. And it's very encouraging, I have to say, that got the biggest applause of any line of the night.
Yeah,
even better than the cat named Vagina. I mean, how do you beat?
No, that was a dog, right?
A dog or a cat. He said he didn't know. I mean, how do you beat a dog named Vagina? How do you top that? But this even topped that.
Yeah. Well, this is what I'm talking about when I drop this sound.
Human sacrifice, dogs and cats living together, mass hysteria.
And this guy's going wild on the soundboard tonight.
It's crazy, man. It's crazy. The Republicans are the peaceniks. The Democrats are the war hawks. It's crazy. It's insane. And it makes it very difficult to figure out. This is why we're the post-duopoly left, because we can't align with the Republicans because of their positions on things like abortion. We can't align with the Democrats because of their positions on many things, including Ukraine. So that's why we're post-duopoly. That's why, because we can't side with either one of these goons. They both have certain points that we agree with, but overall, they're both detestable. Our entire political system. I mean, that should be obvious. I feel like I'm, stating something that should be very plain. I mean, the whole system is just horrible, corrupt, and detestable, and neither side actually reflects anything like the center of public opinion. The center of public opinion does not want to outlaw abortion. The center of public opinion does not want to keep funding a war in Ukraine. Neither party, they both reflect the opinions of out-of-touch elites that are completely disconnected from the broader society. This is what I mean when I say, I don't know that our elites have ever been so completely out of touch with the great mass of American people, even during the Gilded Age. I don't know that they were as completely living in a different reality as the great mass of the public.
Yeah, I saw on CNN after the town hall, I should have pulled this clip, but I saw it too close to airtime, and we're already almost maxed out with our video clips for StreamYard, so it would have been a pain in the ass to play. But one of the CNN anchors was asked, like, what is the international attitude towards a potential second Trump term? Because CNN was buying the standard Kool-Aid that MSNBC was selling, which is, oh my God, Trump did so well. He's unstoppable now. What did we do? He's going to win. Mm-hmm. And the guy said, there's a lot of anxiety that Trump will stop supporting Ukraine. And there's a lot of anxiety that we might not get our third world war, or that World War III may be cut short. This is horrible. How could we have that? Right? As if most people don't want the violence to stop. No, most people want peace.
Right.
Especially people in Europe. They want peace. Peace is what we want here. Okay?
Right. And this is whenever they gin up the outrage about Trump, it's just further strengthens Trump, partly because they're always angry at him about the wrong things. Do you honestly believe that when Trump went up there, when he actually was the president, and said, you know what, why are we paying all this money to defend Europe, and they're supposed to be given a bigger share, and they're not giving their share? You know what? We're going to make sure they pay up. And they all had the vapors about, oh my God, he's alienating our allies. Do you think the average American thought that didn't make good sense?
Of course.
Really? Same thing here. When he goes, yeah, we put in $170 million. What the fuck? These guys put in 20 million. Golden guts. Come on. Yeah, step up, pay up. We're protecting your neighborhood. If you think that doesn't play for the American public, you're not qualified to even comment on politics, which is certainly the case with most people who get paid millions of dollars to comment on politics. They're not qualified to actually comment on politics. They don't understand it. They don't understand the public that they're commenting on. They don't understand how moments like this play because they don't understand that public. The more you go on the air and you call Trump out for statements like that, the more they want to vote for Trump.
Right. Of course. Absolutely. 100%. All right, let's take some super chats here before we go on to our last of the Trump town hall clips. Sorry, I screwed that up. Extra Bullets in the house gave us some eyeballs. You're back.
What
and
up,
then he
yo?
kicked in $2. Been fundraising in Las Vegas. Here's a kickback. Thank you, Extra Bulla. Yeah, Tusker said you got a new job, so now you're able to kick out some super chats. PMC Bulla.
Better do a little better than $2.
Thank you, Extra Bulla. Nick Torres. Nicely put, man. Thank you. I'm sorry, Eric Torres. Not Nick. My eyes played a trick on me there. Franklin, you really think Trump is worse than Biden? No, I don't. No.
Pick
So I
your
don't know
poison.
where you got that idea. But yeah, no, I think they're both bad in different ways, right? That's why, I'm obviously far to the left on the Roe v. Wade stuff, which may have given you the impression, in that last bit that we did, that we have a preference. I honestly don't. I honestly don't have a preference. And this is one of the things that's very frustrating about seeing a lot of lefties still trying to appeal to, and this is where a lot of the Marianne stuff comes from, and we'll get into this a little bit in the next segment. We're not really stepping on it because we're not really going to get into the weeds of this, but you see a guy like David Sirota, and most recently Nathan Robinson came out with this whole thing about how, the Trump town hall means Trump is likely to win the presidency again, and Sirota said something like Democrats need to have debates because even if Biden ends up being the nominee, he'll be a stronger candidate if he has to debate Marianne Williamson. All of these, progressives trying to appeal to the sort of good judgment of the people who are, at the end of the day, blue no matter who anyway. Oh, no, we need a debate because, look, we want Marianne, but even if we don't get Marianne, you should give us a debate because it'll make Biden stronger. At this point, I'm just done with all of that. I'm not interested in that. I'm not interested in trying to convince you of some contrived reason why there should be a primary debate so that we get the best candidate possible to beat the Republicans. Ooh, the Republicans.
Please, sir, may we have a debate?
Right. But even the premise of that, the grounds on which you are appealing, which is it's going to make the Democrats stronger against the Republicans, and isn't that the ultimate fight? No, I'm sorry, that's not the ultimate fight.
Yeah.
On any issue, it's not the ultimate fight. Willow Project, right? Biggest drilling permit in the history of federal lands, issued not by Donald Trump, but by Joe Biden. He just issued another project that's part of the Inflation Reduction Act that actually has a giant carbon footprint itself. Immigration, worse under Biden. So no, I don't think Trump is worse than Biden, and I'm not interested in anybody who tries to make a case for a progressive takeover of the party as a means to defeat Trump. At this point, I'm not invested in defeating Trump. I'm not interested. I don't care. And on the main issue of the day, what will certainly be the main issue of the day if it lasts into 2024, is the Russia-Ukraine thing, and there's no question in my mind who's better on that issue. That's not even close.
That's the ball game, right? World War III.
Exactly. That's the ball game. What could be higher stakes than that?
Trump's statement there, we didn't play it, that he'd have it over in 24 hours. I don't know if that's true. I think it would end.
Yeah,
I think it would end. I think he would say, because he would make it clear, as Biden could do on any given day. Yeah, look, Volodymyr, you're sitting down with Putin, or we're cutting off the aid.
And that's it.
War over.
It's that simple. Europe is not going to step up. Europe is not going to step up with funding.
No, of course.
They don't have the means to, and they don't have the incentive to, quite frankly. Their people don't want this.
Right.
Okay. So, yes, of course, maybe not 24 hours, but I think it would end fairly quickly.
Trump's not wrong, and he wasn't wrong on NATO. Why are we paying for this?
Right. So if we break this down,
that's their continent.
Right. Well, yeah, of course. If we break this down, right, you have Trump, Biden, right? Under Biden, World War III. Under Trump, you have a ceasefire. That's night and day. That's a night and day difference.
Right.
Even on a pressing issue like global warming, what? Trump, you get Anwar drilling. Biden, you get Willow Project. Like what? Like there's barely a difference on that issue, right? And so on the issues that matter, I mean, Trump is better. Absolutely, I think. All right, let's go to this last bit of sound here. This is just for people who thought that Caitlin Collins didn't put up enough of a fight. Here's Donald Trump reviving one of the hits from 2016, giving the more PC version of the nasty woman bar, but here he is at the very end. Yeah, when she presses him about the secret classified documents at Mar-a-Lago.
Why you held on to those documents when you knew the federal government was seeking them and then had given you a subpoena to return them.
Are you ready? Are you ready? Can I talk?
Yeah, what's the answer? Do
you mind?
I would like for you to answer the question.
Okay, it's very simple to answer.
That's why I asked it.
It's very simple you're a nasty person, I'll tell you.
You're a nasty person. Then he goes on. Indeed. Interesting blocking that they chose to get them out of the seats for that last question. Like, I don't know why.
I mean, you got to say, man, if anybody's drinking tiger blood, it's not Charlie Sheen, it's Trump, because he hasn't aged a day, man. Every other motherfucker who serves as president, they come out and they've aged 50 years. This guy looks fresh as a daisy, ready to go again.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Up for another round.
You know, he's just a little younger than Biden, but he gives the impression of vigor and energy, whereas Biden, you're afraid he's going to get lost. He's going to fall down. He's not going to know how to get off the stage every time you see him. You're afraid of him having this, horrible senior moment on stage.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Robert Penner, thanks for the $5, my friends. But why would Sirota care about climate change? He only turned it into a Hollywood asteroid. That's right. It was the inspiration for the Don't Look Up film, which he co-wrote with Adam McKay. Long story short, thanks for the $2. Some white pills, New York is now capping insulin costs. Well, that is good to know. I didn't hear about that. Are they? Is that a new thing for New York State? I'll have to look into that. But thank you, long story short. We appreciate it very much. Okay, cool. Now, after the Trump town hall, obviously, we had various media reactions, people from all over the political spectrum, the anti-Trump spectrum. We're very, very upset about this. We have 3 examples that we feel are sort of representative of the full scope of things. So first, let's go to extremist anti-gay bigot Mehdi Hassan. Again, just a really extreme throwback, bigoted, anti-LGBT thinker who, claims to have had a change of heart, but he really claimed to have had that change of heart when he
pro-life.
Yeah, right. Yeah, and pro-life. When he thought that there was an opportunity to make it as a progressive writer, right? So, I mean, I don't take anything, that he says in any sort of good faith. But let's hear what he has to say, doing his little TikTok rant here, his little indignation monologue for the MSNBC morons. Here we go.
Tonight was a disaster for anyone. The CNN town hall tonight was a disaster for anyone not named Donald John Trump. It was a disaster for CNN. It was a disaster for American journalism more broadly. And it was a disaster for anyone who cares about the future of our democracy and, truth. The format was ridiculous. A town hall full of Trump supporters who cheered on and applauded their hero as he spoke on stage.
Okay, it was a Republican primary town hall. The point of these events in a primary is for Republican primary voters to pick who they want. So that's why the audience leaned Republican, because it's a Republican primary town hall. It's a perfectly good explanation for that. Why would Trump agree to do a town hall full of MSNBC shitlibs? Like, what would be in it for him to do that? The only reason you get him there in the first place is because he's going to be making his case to Republican primary voters in New Hampshire, one of the early states. So that criticism just makes no sense. Well, the crowd was full of Republicans. Well, yeah, shit.
And actually, you know what? There were clearly anti-Trump Republicans there, because you did see people who sat on their hands through all of it. There were people in the audience like that.
Oh, yeah.
The people they kept going to, I would just mention, there were 2 young kids who really looked like the Hitler Youth. That's why they kept showing them. They kept going to these 2 kids to really scare people. Like you were ready for them to burst out into Fatherland, fatherland. Like they totally had that look about them. So, you know, you definitely had that. But if you looked a little more closely, there were people there who were, you know, until I found out it was an all Republican audience, I assumed those were the Democrats in the crowd.
Yeah, right.
But I guess they were DeSantis voters.
Yeah, no, it was the most
few Nikki Haley people in there.
Yeah, right. Yeah, exactly. They had the Nikki Haley crowd represented there. All right, let's hear.
7 of the 9 audience questions tonight came from people who supported Trump's 2020 re-election bid.
Well, yeah, 95% of Republicans voted for Trump in 2020, so 7 out of 9 is actually low, right? That's only 77%, whereas Trump got 95% of the Republican vote in 2020. And once again, this was a Republican event. That's why he showed up in the first place. He wouldn't have shown up to a Democrat event. Or to an event with voters who weren't going to vote in the Republican primary. What would be the point of that?
Right.
And as for host Caitlin Collins' questions, they just didn't land, and there weren't enough follow-ups. When Trump falsely claimed that he had never said the Constitution...
He shouldn't have let him talk at all. Should have treated him like I treated Matt Taibbi, which is just never let him speak and just hog the mic the entire time.
Why were there no whipped cream pies handed out to the audience?
Right. Exactly.
Rotten tomatoes were completely absent.
Right, exactly.
...should be terminated? Collins didn't correct him. When he falsely claimed that Democrats execute babies, Collins didn't correct him. When he falsely claimed that he had finished building his border wall, Collins tried to correct him, but he just talked all over her. And when Trump made a racist remark about Chinatown, Collins said nothing whatsoever, nor did she defend herself when he called her a nasty person. Perhaps the most revealing and depressing moment of the night is when Collins again and again tried to interrupt Donald Trump's non-stop lying about a rigged 2020 election.
And then we had...
Well, she did. I mean,
the rigged election, I'm sorry to say it.
The election was
she did every single time. I always talk about
saying that all night long.
Actually, he could, he did, and CNN helped him do it.
Hang on, you just showed a clip of her interrupting
him. Yeah, exactly.
Right after you said that she didn't interrupt him.
I mean, she interrupted him every single time.
Right.
Every single time.
She did that all night long. What more did you want her to do? You want her to physically attack him? Like, what else? What was she supposed to do?
Yeah, exactly.
Every single time he said something like that, she fact-checked him in real time. Which frankly, journalists aren't even supposed to do. You know, this is a new post-Trump rule they've made, that you can do that just with Donald Trump, that it's acceptable. Do you remember years ago, Mitt Romney was fact-checked? I forget the name of the woman who was running that debate. She was pilloried for it the next day because she contradicted Mitt Romney in real time. People in the chat, you'll know who
Crowley?
This is. Was that Candy Crowley?
Yeah, it was Candy Crowley. Yeah.
It was a big deal. It was a big deal because you're not supposed to do that as a journalist. You're supposed to just ask him questions and leave that up to the public. If you want to do fact checks afterwards, that's traditionally how it's been done.
Right. Exactly. So, okay, next, let's hear from Rick Wilson, the Lincoln Project grifter who raised a lot of money for a documentary on Donald Trump that he never ended up making. He recorded this on his phone during a commercial break of the town hall. Very, very upset about this. Wink, wink. I don't think he's too upset at all. I think he's thrilled that he feels Donald Trump is going to win the nomination, because if Donald Trump lost the nomination, Rick Wilson would have to wrestle with, do I embrace my actual conservative values and support DeSantis, or do I stay on the gravy train and keep the Lincoln Project thing going and fundraise for Democrats? Anyway, he claims to be very upset about how well Trump did. Let's see if we buy this.
We're in a break now from the presidential town hall with CNN, Caitlin Collins, and whatever the fuck they thought they were going to get out of this, I'm so angry. Setting match to democracy once again. See how angry I am? An insane person stand there and make people giggle and laugh. Send me money. Send me money. You make people giggle and laugh when he jokes about abortion, when he calls an African-American police officer a thug. This insanity should be pulled off the fucking air. Chris Lick, you should be ashamed of yourself. This is astoundingly bad for the brand of CNN. It's astoundingly bad for the country. And it's astoundingly bad, honestly, folks, for every other Republican candidate in the primaries. Wrap that shit up. It's done. You saw this tonight. You know you can't beat him on the stage. Everybody else, oars up. Time to go to work because he's going to be the nominee. This shit is unfucking believable. I've never seen anything like it. It is a disaster of the highest fucking degree.
Code Red, everybody. Get those checkbooks out. Lincoln Project. P.O. Box, whatever, 555.
Yeah, first of all, these are the same geniuses who said he would never be the nominee.
Right.
So
Yeah, exactly.
take their political prognostication with a grain of salt. But then if you look at it from another perspective, they are melting down at the idea that Donald Trump could actually be the president again. Yo, man, you people made Donald Trump. And I'm not talking about your fucking media coverage, which all of a sudden now you woke up to the fact that now it's legitimate. He's the leading candidate for president on the in the country. He's leading in the Republican primary polling. He's leading in the national polling. Well, he's supposed to. You guys go on about how much you care about democracy. They're supposed to not give him any attention. They're supposed to ignore him. Now it's legitimate. Now, when you guys were putting a camera on his empty podium while Bernie Sanders was doing a packed stadium rally, yeah, right. You built up Trump, but that's not even what I'm talking about. For decades, you and your kind and your class shit on working people. You shit on the Rust Belt. You told these people that, don't worry, NAFTA is going to bring you better jobs. We're going to give you retraining. You're going to have the jobs of the future. This is going to benefit your communities. And then when they complained about it, you all very smugly wrote your little articles about how automation is really to blame. It's really not NAFTA. And these people are just Luddites and they're stuck in the past and it's globalization. And this has nothing to do with the fact that we allowed corporations to write NAFTA. It has nothing to do with the fact that we continuously let corporations write our trade policies. As these people's lives got more and more desperate, as their economic prospects evaporated, as their towns were destroyed, all I ever saw you people do was do your smug little roundtables on Sunday morning about globalization as if it was this force of nature that you all had no control over. And, these people are just stuck in the past. And now they're fucking coming for you with pitchforks. Donald Trump is the Stay Puffed Marshmallow Man of your bad karma. You envisioned the form of your destruction, and it is Donald Trump. You earned it. Live with it.
Yeah, indeed. Absolutely. All right, we got one more media response we have to get to. This is AOC talking on MSNBC. However, I thought we should play this version of this clip because this is AOC with a special introduction by none other than Harry Sisson, the Gen Z Biden influencer. You know, the guys like this all the time. Yeah. He gives her a special introduction. Here we go.
Representative AOC just absolutely destroyed Donald Trump and went after CNN for giving him a platform at their town hall tonight. She called it irresponsible and dangerous for our country. Just take a look at her epic takedown.
Somebody's got to put this kid in rehab.
You will not comment on the platform.
Yeah, here we go.
I mean, that kid, every clip I see him do is a desperate cry for help.
Went after CNN for giving him a platform at their town hall tonight. She called it irresponsible and dangerous for our country. Just take a look at her epic takedown.
I know you said earlier that you will not comment on the platforming of such atrocious disinformation, but I would. I think it was a profoundly irresponsible decision. I don't think that I would be doing my job if I did not say that. And what we saw tonight was a series of extremely irresponsible decisions that put a sexual abuse victim at risk, that put that person at risk in front of a national audience, and I could not have disagreed with it more. It was shameful.
AOC, it's very, very disturbing. She's rapidly becoming the foremost advocate for a anti-free speech platform predicated around the kind of woke vocabulary of safety. Right. This was the same shit she pulled on Jose Vega anonymously when she went to the military recruitment event and said, these people are coming from outside of our community, right? You know,
there are children inside.
There are children, right? She really likes to play this card that her opposition are a threat. They're enemies. They're a threat to safety. It's that, you know, that woke vocabulary that now she's fused with this establishment agenda, which is a very dangerous combination.
Yeah. I mean, you know, that answer there. I mean, look, even to talk about platforming him and putting an abuse victim at risk. Look, E. Jean Carroll obviously knew Trump was a candidate when she brought this. She obviously knew this was going to be discussed in public. If she didn't want it discussed in public, she wouldn't have brought the suit in the first place. So how could you call discussion of that putting her at risk? Like, she obviously knew this was going to be discussed. It doesn't even really make sense.
Right. And again, he's the leading candidate for president. You're supposed to not
hear what he says. Right. Exactly. Yeah.
Like, these are the same people who will tell you they're defending democracy.
Right.
And yet they seem to believe that the way to defend democracy is to throw all democratic norms out the window.
Exactly.
No debates, no town halls for the opposition, deplatform your opponents, work with tech oligarchs to manage online speech. I don't know. That doesn't sound like democracy to me. Doesn't sound like any democracy I've ever heard of.
Yeah, no, indeed. All right, we're going to do our Katie Halper and Briahna Joy Gray segment in just a moment, folks. I know that's what you guys are all waiting for, you gossip mongerers, you mean girls, you. We are getting to that in just a second. Hit that like button before we start that. We're going to take some super chats. Hit that subscribe button if you're not already subscribed. Can we get to 9,000 by the end of the night? We're at 8,950. You had a lot of you guys sign up. Let's go. Hit that subscribe button.
More subs. Bennett
Weiss, my dad. Thank you, Dad, for the $5. That Trump, the once and future president, is the sanest player on the national political stage. Shows how far down the shitter we've already traveled. Well, yes, I think that's right. I think that's well said. Sandy M. Thank you, Sandy. Did Mehdi ever retract his lie that Matt Taibbi committed perjury during his testimony to Congress? Haha, no.
Retract.
Why would he do that?
That would
you think that's
suggest
going to win
someone...
him any points with the MSNBC crowd? They don't give a shit. They don't know anything.
They don't care. Yeah, nobody's
they don't know. They don't care.
Account.
Right.
He's doing what he's being paid to do.
Exactly.
Lie. He's being paid to lie.
Exactly. I like that. Feinstein's looking better than Mehdi. Thank you, Blue. Appreciate that. They really took this hard, man. There were about a dozen media clips we could have played if we wanted to.
Morning Joe was like gonna cry.
Yeah, he was
like
looking pretty
Joe
upset.
Scarborough was gonna cry.
Yeah.
Well, because this creates so much cognitive dissonance for them because they're not willing to see themselves as despised elites and to take any responsibility for it. So they're constantly misreading the room. And then whenever they are woken out of their slumber by poll numbers showing that even Donald Trump is more popular than you are,
right?
They don't know how to process it.
Exactly. It's just indignation. That's all they have. They have no solutions. They have no argument. They're not willing to examine themselves, make any kinds of changes. It's all just indignation. It's just, when will people just bend to our will and see things our way? Right?
It is said that the people are revolting.
You said it. They stink on ice.
Stink on ice. Apocalyptic Optimist, thank you for the $4.99. Man, Chat GPT will get rid of all these journalists' salaries. CNN and MSNBC can be saved. Just put a picture of a person up and AI the whole thing. They could. These guys are very interchangeable in that way.
Yeah. Did you see? It was Nathan Robinson, I think, who ran the experiment of. He asked Chat GPT to write a story about Batman fighting Marx. It was actually good.
Right.
It was pretty good.
Certainly better than anything Wolf Blitzer could write.
You know what? It's true.
Yeah,
like it's not even a joke. It was
Chris Cillizza, right? Of course.
Yeah.
Ask fucking Chris Cillizza to write that.
Yeah.
See what you get. Song 27. Thanks for the 1999s. Very generous of you. AOC is becoming more dangerous by the day. Censorship and war under the guise of liberal women of color. Who is on your side? Yes, I agree.
Exactly.
That's very well
exactly. Said. It's a very frightening fusion of the woke millennial Zoomer thing with the, old Coke classic establishment neoliberal militarism thing. She is we thought that she was going to represent some of us did, that she was going to represent the Sanders movement in Congress and represent the next generation. And she really, really, truly, in a terrifying way, is showing us what the face of Nancy Pelosi 2.0 is going to look like.
Right. Exactly. Coca-Cola, good show, gentlemen. Thank you. Appreciate that very much. Thank you all for the donations. Hit that like button. We're up to 89.52. A couple of you guys took my advice. Please hit that subscribe button. Try and get us to 9,000 subscribers. 774 people in here now. And now we are going to cover this next segment, Briahna Joy Gray and Katie Halper. So everybody, anyone who has not seen the photo by now, I'm just going to upload this very, very quickly, do a little impromptu exhibit for you all. This is the photo at Crystal and Kyle's wedding with the podcasters, Ben Burgess, the Vanguard guys there, Sling Blade and Boys Don't Cry in the picture, Briahna Joy Gray, Katie Halper, Shoe on head. I think that's Katie Halper's boyfriend on the left. I don't know who that is. That's a civilian, right? We don't go after families here. That's the rule, right? Yeah. Families stay out of it. And then there's Shoe on head, who I'd never heard of. I don't know who the hell that is. That's some Twitter
I never
account.
heard of that person either.
Don't know. But anyway, that's the picture. And of course, you have obviously in the circle there, Marianne Williamson, which was really the source of the controversy, since many in this photo, not all, but many in this photo, have been propping her candidacy up. And so this creates the impression that there's a bit of a conflict of interest in their coverage, which I think is a totally reasonable thing to think, seeing that they are, palling around with her, taking pictures at a wedding, and then they're going to go home and they're going to create YouTube videos and monetize those videos about how Marianne has a chance here because the New Hampshire voters are pissed at Joe Biden, right? And so, a few different outlets called these guys out about this. Most prominently, our friends over at the Revolutionary Blackout Network saw the same sort of conflict of interest that we did. My original take, for those of you who missed it, was not so much that there is a current conflict of interest, but that there is a potential conflict of interest should Marianne's candidacy take off. And what's most damning to me about this is that Crystal and Kyle surely know that if Marianne catches fire, the fact that she's seen palling around at the wedding of the two media figures who are most aggressively promoting her candidacy, that would at that point be perceived as a conflict of interest. And so what that tells me is that Crystal and Kyle know she's never going to get to that point, which is why they figure no harm, no foul, let's invite her. Which proves what we've been saying the whole time, which was they know Marianne's candidacy is DOA, but they're pushing it in order to drive engagement on their channel to give their audiences a hero story to root for during the campaign season, even though it's obviously doomed to fail. Anyway, Briahna Joy Gray invited her friend Katie Halper on to commiserate about being trolled, I guess. That was the point of this episode, was to, just complain in public that some people were being mean to them. Like, I'm not quite sure what the rationale for this was, but we're going to play a clip of it in just a second. Russell, go ahead.
Yeah, I just want to make something clear before we move on. Neither us nor Revolutionary Blackout Network, I can't speak beyond that. I haven't seen anyone else's take, but I think generally, I don't think anybody is saying, as, this is kind of a straw man argument I keep hearing. Well, what? You're holding people accountable for going to a wedding? No, man. If Crystal and Kyle, for God knows what reason, sent us an invite, we would have gone. As Keaton points out, given our output, there wouldn't have been any conflict of interest. Look at the videos we do. We're not like propping up or supporting any of these people. Now, the problem with a photo like this is that we are all coming out of a left universe that has spent many years accusing the corporate media of being too cozy with the people that they cover, right? That's been a big part of our argument. So when a photo like this is taken, what you're telling them is if you ever get, and I would include ourselves in here, if we ever get beyond bitching on YouTube and actually got real power.
Right.
Meet the new boss, same as the old boss. You're telling them you're going to play by the same exact rules as the establishment that you hope to displace, right? You're telling them that you two are going to have these same conflicts of interest where you're going to root for your friends and you're going to prop them up and you're going to go on your shows and pretend that you're giving an honest interview, but you're really not, right? You're going to be just like them. That's what you're telling people with a photo like this. Now, I'm not saying you shouldn't have been at a wedding. I would more say the Crystal and Kyle, who I would say have been the most out front about promoting Marianne. I don't know that Brie even has, like, she's interviewed her. I don't know that she's really been like, she's been pushing the third party idea generally. But Crystal and Kyle,
no, but she did some bullshit where she was trying to be Pollyannish about the fact that Marianne might do a dirty break, and that whole thing that she got into.
Right, I heard that. I didn't see it.
And also the whole thing that she got into with Shama was like, well, isn't there value in a primary challenge, and shouldn't we support it?
Rich, well, yes, and we'll get into that. But I think Crystal and Kyle have been the main advocates.
Of course, yes. They've been the driving force behind her candidacy in the first place.
Right.
Yes, of course.
So to have her marry you, clearly that's a conflict of interest if you want to be taken seriously. So that kind of brings us up to what their response was in the video that we have queued up.
Exactly. All right, here we go.
We're not like NBC journalists. We are people who have podcasts who make our politics very well known.
Mm-hmm.
We're opinion
journalists.
We're opinion journalists. Yes. I shouldn't even say we're not NBC journalists. I'll just say, yeah, we are opinion journalists, and our politics are very well known.
Mm-hmm.
There isn't the same conflict of interest that you see with people who claim to be objective journalists. I'm not saying there can't be conflicts of interest. And I do think that sometimes it's hard to navigate how to interview someone who's your friend, because you may not push back as forcefully, or you may overcompensate and push back more forcefully.
Okay, I just want to stop this for a second here. There's 2 points that I have to make about this. Number one, it's a weak point to begin with, right? Because even opinion journalists, if they want to be taken seriously as objective analysts, right, they still have to maintain some distance from the people they are covering. Like when I told people to vote for Bernie Sanders, it wasn't because I was friends with Bernie Sanders. It's because I could make the objective case why Bernie Sanders was the best president. Now, that objective case is rooted in my values, which are mine, and so they are subjective in that sense. But I could go out and I could make a logical argument why I, as a progressive at the time, that's what I called myself, right? Now, who the fuck knows what, right? But at the time, I could say, okay, this is why, based on this set of values, Bernie is the best candidate. Right. If I'm posing for photos with him at social events, it makes that claim more difficult to make from an objective point of view, as a point of objective political sort of balls and strikes calling. The other point I would say about this is that when you see Katie Halper talk about, well, we're not NBC journalists, we are opinion journalists, there is an element of the case that they are making for Marianne that is a more objective case, which is not just that they like Marianne and they like her politics better than Biden, and so they want her to beat Biden. They are trying to build an objective case for why Marianne is a serious candidate with a chance to win. That is an objective case. That's not rooted in personal preference. When Kyle goes on his microphone and he says, the people of New Hampshire are really pissed at Biden, which leaves Marianne an opening, that has nothing to do with Kyle's personal preference for Marianne's politics. He is making an objective case to his viewers why she has a chance.
Right.
Right? And so this is not all just opinion. They have to get past the hurdle of convincing their audience that this is real. That requires a certain objectivity, and an objectivity that you forfeit when you are palling around in wedding photos with Marianne. And once again, I just want to say this. We said this on RBN when we did our post-duopoly show on Monday with them. If Marianne's not in this photo, there's no story here. There's no problem. We're not interested in trolling anybody's wedding. These guys want to get together, slam back some drinks, have a good time.
We were not even going to cover this until we found out about Marianne.
But the presidential candidate who the bride and groom have basically created and who a lot of these guys are propping up, her being there makes it a story, yes.
And I think something that neither one of them really thought through before they decided to offer this argument, you can't have it both ways. What you're saying is people shouldn't take you seriously. You're saying we're not journalists. We're opinion people who have a personal relationship with this person. So what I say about this person is worthless, right? I mean, that follows, right? You're saying that you can't be held to a standard of objectivity and journalistic integrity, right? That's what that implies. Yes, we never hit it. We have a friendship. We have a personal relationship. We're not NBC journalists. Okay, so you're saying I have no credibility. I'm entertainment. If you find me entertaining, watch me, but don't take me very seriously. And if that's the argument you're making, well, then you can hardly be offended when people point out that you're not serious people who should be taken seriously in your judgment and opinions about this election. It's one or the other.
Exactly. You can't have it both ways.
It depends.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I've struggled with that. So there's a piece of this that I think is more Marianne focused, and there's a piece of this that is more generalized. I'd like to start by saying that it was such a, kind of pleasant surprise and an honor to be invited to anybody's wedding, but in particular this wedding. I had no idea of who was going to be there except for you. I knew that you and Marianne were going to be there.
Okay, so look, if you knew that Marianne was going to be there, I'm not saying you shouldn't have gone. But I'm saying even if I were at the wedding, which Russell said we would have gone if we were invited. I mean, that's semi-joking in the sense that...
I mean, Bree says she would be flattered to be invited to anybody's wedding. So if I find a woman I dislike enough to inflict that kind of torture on, I will invite Bree and we'll see what she says.
We'll see what she says. But look, I mean, it's very unlikely that Kyle or Crystal even know who the fuck either of us are. But even if I were there as an opinion commentator... Like, maybe I'd have rubbed elbows, but I wouldn't have taken a picture. It would have looked bad. Like, I would have maybe said hello to Marianne, but that's it. Like, that's it. I mean, you don't mingle that way on camera, especially when you are propping the candidate up. I mean, we obviously have made our thoughts on her candidacy very, very well known, so there would have been no conflict there, of course, obviously. But these are guys, I mean, I don't know what Burgess has been saying. I can't really speak to him. But I know that Katie Halper's been pro-Marianne. Briahna's been generally pro-Marianne. Vanguard guys have been extremely pro-Marianne. And so they're at the bride and groom's wedding there who, yes, I mean, I'm sorry, as RBN did say, they more or less recruited her into the race to begin with, right? She's her pet candidate. She's their pet candidate, basically. And so that's where you have there. Now, that was the clip that Briahna tweeted out. Then when she published the full video, or at least what she was making available to the non-paid subscribers, which was the video that she put up on YouTube, there came an interesting point where Katie Halper took issue with some people who felt that Katie and Briahna's class positions were compromising them in some way. So let's take a listen to this. This is kind of interesting.
There's another problem I have with this analysis, which is that it's very reductive to identity politics in a way that I think really cheapens the debate, and it makes it so you can't really say anything because people will say these people are wealthy. They don't have your class interests.
Oh, you're saying the class identity politics.
The class identity politics, yeah.
Look,
but here's the thing, though. But here's my problem with that. There are lots of working class people who are to the right of where you and I are.
Of course.
And it's just not it's not something that you can just say, just like with race, you can't do that either.
Okay, but there are working class people who are to the right of where a lot of left-wing people and left-wing commentators are. That's absolutely true. However, one of the sort of trends that we have been observing and participating in to a certain extent is this trend away from the left-right paradigm and a trend towards a top-down paradigm. So in other words, we are more forgiving of working class people who may be to our right than we are of progressives in good standing who may have a class interest or a class position that leads them to perpetuate certain narratives and promote certain dynamics, i.e. the two-party system, the inside the Democratic Party route, that we feel are at best a dead end for working people and at worst hostile to the hopes, aspirations, and needs of working people. So the fact that, a well-to-do person who espouses Medicare for all, but also tries to, sheepdog us back into the Democratic Party through one of these failed vanity primary campaigns, be it Marianne or RFK, yeah, we're going to view them more harshly than we would a working class person who is perhaps to our right on those kinds of issues. And so that's where I think she just has the dynamic wrong, right? I think she's confused in the dynamics that are actually of importance to, look, I won't speak for anyone but myself in that, but that's the way I see it. I'm not going to speak for other channels or other commentators. I'm sure RBN will have plenty to say about this themselves, so I won't put words in their mouth.
Nobody has ever had to speak up
I'm not
for
betting
those
on
guys.
them to be quiet about this. Yeah.
Okay. Tusker actually sent me a bit of communist theory from 1934.
And she's in the studio now. I'm going to admit Tusker soon. I just want to get through this video, but hang in there.
But she was very surprised that I was willing to read communist theory. I told her I'll take wisdom wherever it comes from, man. I'm not picky. That means that the petty bourgeoisie cannot be as consistently counter-revolutionary as the big bourgeoisie, but it cannot be as consistently with the revolution as is the proletariat. The petty bourgeoisie is afraid of the big bourgeoisie, but it is also afraid of the revolution. Some sections of the petty bourgeoisie are attracted to the revolution, which represents their future interests, but they shrink before the sharp line of the revolutionary struggle. Fundamentally, they would like to have class peace because nothing is more dear to the heart of the petty bourgeoisie than social peace. However, they feel that social peace means their own doom. Therefore, when the proletariat develops a strong revolutionary movement, many petty bourgeois elements are irresistibly drawn to the revolutionary camp, only in turn to denounce its extremes, quote, and to don, quote, extreme left masks itself. They are finding fault with the existing capitalist system, but they are also finding fault with the revolution and its leaders, not being truly revolutionary, being able only to be led by the revolution. They often develop an immense conceit. They think of themselves as the only and real revolutionists. They denounce the real revolutionist as dogmatic and narrow. That very much shows you that everything old is new again. This was written in 1935. The author is Moisei Olgin, a Ukrainian Marxist-Leninist. Now, as you all know, I am no tanky, but that is good wisdom, right? I think that
That's
sums
a fake
up.
name she gave you. It was actually like Chi Pin Yang or something like that. She just didn't want you to know that because then you wouldn't have read it.
Tusker's down there giving us the middle finger,
yeah.
Backstage. No, hey, that's what that picture is to me. And look, the same way, and we talked about this when we were discussing the segment, the same way, I do not, clearly, if you've watched the show, we do not believe that you cannot talk about things outside your own experience, meaning I don't feel like you can't talk about an issue that primarily impacts African Americans unless you're African American. I do believe that when people say, hey, man, sure, you can talk about that, but be aware of your perspective and its limitations. Be aware that there are certain things about that you're never going to quite get because you're not that. I agree with that. So why don't you, Katie, rich Upper West Side girl, all right, I'm a New Yorker, I know where you're from, Why don't you think that way about your class? Right? I'm not saying you can't talk about poor issues. I'm not saying you can't be an ally. I'm not saying you've taken some stances I love. In fact, most of the time, actually, you still have a certain class perspective that colors some of what you say and what you think. And this is a perfect demonstration of that, as we will get into a little more. But just as if somebody from an identity group I'm not from said to me, hey, man, you know, you might not be getting all this because you don't have my perspective, I'd say, yeah, you know, that's true. That's true of you. That's true of you. That's true of your class perspective. You don't know what the rough side of town is like. You've never been to it and you're never going there. So have a little humility when you're speaking on these subjects. There are things about it, as well-intentioned as you might be, that you just don't understand and you never will.
Yeah. And look, I'll just say, I've never really been there either. I grew up in a middle-class household, not a working-class household. My parents were basically street peddlers. They made handmade glass beaded jewelry. No, that's what they did.
It's very Jewish.
San Francisco,
it's like old school Lower East Side.
In the 80s in San Francisco, you could get a street vendor permit to sell jewelry in San Francisco for $80 a year, right? $80 a year. You could set up, you know, anywhere you wanted and sell. And that's what they did. And then they put together a literal mom and pop wholesale jewelry business where they would sell jewelry to stores and they would do craft shows every once in a while. If they had reached their prime earning years in any other decade but the 90s, they'd have been working. They wouldn't have had a middle class income. It would have been a working class income because they happened to do this in the 90s when you could actually make a middle class living doing that. I grew up middle class, not upper middle class, not lower middle class, dead middle. Neither of my parents graduated college. Of my 5 aunts and uncles, only one graduated college. None of my grandparents graduated college. So we probably have a little bit of that working class ethic in us. But I did not, full disclosure, grow up not knowing if I was going to eat next week. I don't have that experience. And the fact that I don't have that experience gives me, as Russell said, a humility when talking about this, which is why I sound like I do have that experience oftentimes when I talk. Sorry to disappoint you guys in the audience that I don't. But my point is, yes, you know, you don't have to live a certain thing if you have humility when discussing a certain thing and able to empathize with people who are in that situation. And your capability of sort of fully grasping with that and fully empathizing with that does become diminished as your experience distances itself from that lived reality of poor and working class people. All right, so let's keep going.
It's not a one-to-one thing. You can't just say, okay, this person is working class, so they speak for all working class people. Because you will have working class people who really disagree with these people. Like you will have Black working class people disagreeing with Black working class people. So the idea that there's this monolithic voice, I think is really problematic. And also is something.
But no one's accusing you, Katie, of having the wrong opinions on X, Y, or Z issue. We're talking here about tactics, right? We're talking here about what is the way forward for a working class movement that realizes the hopes and aspirations of working people. And if you're up here creating podcast content that you're monetizing under the premise that Marianne Williamson's candidacy is worth supporting, and isn't it unfair that the Democrats are screwing her out of a debate? Let's make 11 videos about that, screaming about that, getting people riled up about that. That is a dead end for working people. It's not a dead end for you or your channel. You're growing off of that. You have an interest in doing that. You're very successful at that. That's why you have a lot of money in the bank now, right? This isn't to say you can't speak on these issues, but it is to say that you are going to be scrutinized because of your position and how you got there and how you continue to go from where you are now to that next echelon up the ladder, right? All right, sorry, go ahead.
And frankly, it also says a lot that of those of you who are basically declared, none of you have picked RFK Jr. You've all picked the more palatable, less threatening to the establishment, more Hollywood Marianne Williamson. None of you went with the radical. And I'm not saying, look, there are things I don't agree with RFK Jr. about, but I agree with him about more things than I agree with Marianne Williamson, primarily Ukraine. He's got the right position on Ukraine. That doesn't really matter to you. That says something about you. What is it about your class perspective that attracted you to the candidate that the establishment will find least threatening? Not one of you motherfuckers went for RFK Jr. Why is that? Ask yourself that. Ask yourself that. Katie, I think you're an honest actor. Bree, you too. Ask yourselves, why Marianne and not RFK Jr.? Why?
Right. All right, let's go.
Thing that no one wants to address, because no one wants to be like, well, I'm not that rich. I am rich, or I'm not rich. And it's like, well, if you don't consider that rich, then that shows how out of touch you are. And also, there were people at the wedding who were not rich, who were being called rich. I'm taking myself out of the conversation because that's a losing proposition.
I honestly, I don't have a dog in that fight. If people, like, I feel the same way. If people don't want to trust me or you or anybody because of an admitted, fully disclosed relationship with someone like Marianne Williamson, I think that's perfectly legitimate. Look at it. Look at everything that comes out of my mouth about her with skepticism. I think that's perfectly legitimate. And it is also true that my class interests don't align with many of the people whose political interests I happen to share, because I think of myself as a class trader. I think of myself with shallow, non-generational wealth and someone who is invested in the interests of everyone else in my family who hasn't had the same level of opportunity that I have had. However, that class analysis is fair and real, and you should be looking at the things that come out of my mouth with skepticism as well. On that front, I have no problem with that. The problem that I have is if you don't actually make a case. So if you said this take is a take that is informed by having these divergent class interests, then make the case for that.
Well, that's okay. So that's exactly what we're doing. And Katie, you want an example of what I'm talking about? Maybe when you're talking about class and poverty, don't be drinking a martini and munching on the olives. Okay. That is a choice that somebody who understands poor and working class people would not make. That's a good example of how your privilege is invisible to you, because the fact that you didn't even think twice about munching an olive and go, well, a lot of poor people disagree. But okay, we have that exhibit, unless you wanted to say something.
Yeah, I would just like to say one thing, because, look, I don't want to make this segment a sort of polemic rant against these two.
Yeah.
Like I don't, and I don't want to say that, look, once you reach a certain level of wealth, you can no longer talk about political issues or left-wing or working class issues. That would be a ridiculous thing to say, if we ever get successful, even close to the way they are successful in this game, what would we want people not listening to what we have to say anymore simply because we're making a little more money at it? No, we wouldn't. However, what I would fully expect,
I may be doing the show with the Duomo in the background.
Yeah, right.
But you can still take me seriously about class issues.
What I would say is what Bree sort of hinted at there is, when you do get richer, when you're a rich person talking about working class issues, and just to be to keep this 100% on the level, we're never going to get rich doing this. All right. We're too odd to do that. But you know what I mean? But when you get to class status,
when we should be inviting on Marianne for the grift, we're inviting on Buck Angel for the honesty.
Yeah, and Norman Finkelstein and exactly.
Yeah, these are not the actions of people who are really
looking to get rich quick.
Count. Yeah,
exactly. But when you reach a certain level of wealth, yes, you are scrutinized more, and yes, you are held to even a different moral standard, a different ethical standard. Now, I know a lot of you guys are like, what do you mean about that? I'm not sure I'm with you on that. Well, take this for an example, right? you get a job at a slaughterhouse, right? One of those real industrial scale, just horrifically cruel slaughterhouses. We've all seen the videos, right? Where they treat animals like they are not alive, just, just this factory of just horrible abuse and everything. If a poor or a working class kid takes a job at a place like that, we don't judge them in the same way that we would a rich kid who doesn't really need the job taking the job at that same place, right? Because
then you got a serial
situations are different. Right. The situations are different. A poor working class guy takes a job at a place like that. You say, well, I mean, it's a horrible way to make a living, but he's got to make a living somehow, right? You can't really judge him for that. Rich kid does it, who doesn't need the money or whatever, can do a paper route or whatever the fuck they do. You say, well, what does it say about you that you chose this job when you didn't have to? Right.
Well,
you obviously have to be aware that your audiences are going to make these considerations. And I do. Like the fact that Kyle is up there at 980,000 subs, making a lot of money on YouTube every year. What was it? 2 million, the number was?
2 million. Yeah.
And you're out there peddling this Marianne shit. Yeah, that is worse. That is morally worse than the idealistic kid who gets involved in the Marianne Williamson campaign because they think they're onto something, right? Like,
and we get some of those giving us pushback,
right? Right, exactly. Like you make those judgments, and so it's not that you can't speak to these issues once you make it or once you get rich, but people are, especially, I mean, if your brand, if your game, if your hustle is class politics, then yeah, you should be prepared to get some skepticism along those lines once you reach a certain class yourself, or if you're born into that class yourself, and you are espousing a certain politics that at this point, and this is the critical part of this, at this point has been exposed for a dead end. And the Marianne Williamson candidacy is such a transparent joke. It's such an unserious endeavor that if you are ginning this up as a successful content creator, a very successful content creator, and you're doing so with knowledge that it's not really going anywhere, as Crystal and Kyle must know, or else they would not have invited her to the wedding because they knew this would be a conflict of interest if her campaign ever did take off, then yes, people are going to look at that with skepticism, to put it mildly. They're going to think, what the hell is going on here? You recruited this person into the race. You're making thousands and thousands of dollars off of her candidacy, even though it's only, a few weeks old at this point. And now she's officiating the wedding. And now this whole circle of content creators around you, with sort of similar politics to you, who are also kind of getting in on the Marianne campaign grift. Now they're posing for photos with her at the wedding. Oh yeah, this does give the impression that, as RBN said, it's a big club, right? I mean, that's the impression that creates. I'm sorry. Like, I'm not trying to beat up on you, but that is what it creates. Yeah.
Yeah. And to be clear, and whenever I say things like this, it's very interesting. And this is what Keaton means by we're too odd to get rich doing this. You got a lot of people, not most of our audience. I love the audience we've cultivated. You get a few of these fucking two online freaks who, if you express any nuance about any of these figures, they have a heart attack, right? Like if you don't hate somebody enough, if you go too easy on them. I had somebody today complain that months ago I went too easy on Crystal, so they're going to cancel their subscription.
Yeah.
I said, how are we going to pay for our whiskey and horse?
Yeah, right. Exactly. Yeah.
We need that money. So, there are going to be people who take exception to what I'm about to say. So Kyle is a straight out fucking liar. I did an entire video about it. I caught him doing it. I have the receipts. I laid it out. Straight out fucking lying grifter. Period. Does that mean he doesn't have any good qualities? I know they invited like cameramen to the wedding, which again, we don't really care about who got invited to the wedding, but yeah, sure. I'm not saying the guy is fucking, Pol Pot or anything. Tusker's probably friendly with Pol Pot's nephew or something.
Tusker, by the way, get ready. I'm going to admit you in just a minute. I want to admit you before we put the exhibit up because you sent it to us. So don't go nowhere. All right, go ahead, Russell.
Okay, so I'm watching Katie and Bree here. I think, honestly, legitimately wrestle with these issues. Like, I don't feel like they're bad faith actors. I feel, pun intended. I feel like they're honestly wrestling with these questions. And that's why I'm taking the time to say, because, look, I don't know about Kyle and Crystal. I know Briahna has seen our show. And Katie probably has too, because we interviewed Matt. So I don't know if they're going to see this segment, but assuming that they are, consider the same way that you would never question if somebody who was queer said to you, hey, man, I appreciate you standing up for my community and speaking on my issues, but there's an element of it you're never going to get. I'm sure neither one of you would never say, what are you talking about? That's what I'm telling you about class issues. I'm somebody who grew up on welfare. I grew up on food stamps. I grew up with a single mother in a 1-bedroom apartment on disability. Like a lot of people, man, people that you probably don't know. You probably have never really known people who have come up like that, but there are a lot more than you might realize, or maybe you do realize, and maybe that's why you generally are on the right side politically. I do understand that with your class advantages, the easy thing to do would be to have sucked up to the MSNBC people. I get that you made a moral choice, right, to go in that direction. But what I'm telling you now is you do have certain limits on your perspective that is dictated by the limitations of your class, and just have a little humility about that and consider that maybe you don't think it's a big deal to guide people into wasting their time and their money on a completely pointless campaign for president, because you don't know what it is not to have the time or the money to lose. Think about that. Consider that that's where the backlash is coming from.
Exactly. All right, I'm going to let Tusker in for this next portion. Tusker, how are you? Good to see you.
How are you guys?
Doing great. Doing all
Good.
right. Tusker, you sent us this next exhibit that we're going to show, but go ahead, get a word in edgewise before.
Well, okay, yeah. Before we go ahead and start, look, out of all of the people that were in that photo, all of the people, Katie and Bree are just about the only two that are actually willing to even attempt to have a discussion, and they focus around this part of like the left. Crystal will wave you off. She'll call you names. She'll call you whatever, and then she'll move on. She'll say you're not a grown up. At least Katie and Bree were actually discussing it. Bree was trying to say, look, you should be skeptical. My class is,
right,
all that stuff.
Right.
So this is in no way at all an attempt to like super beat up on them. And also, I just want to remind everyone here, Frederick Ingalls was a factory owner and Lenin was a lawyer. Okay. PMCs can be class traitors, but the thing that they will always have an issue with is it just has to do with the relationship to the means of production that kind of separates you, and you have a tendency towards either left or right opportunism. That's it. It doesn't mean that you can't be sincere. It doesn't mean that you can't be a class traitor. Okay, that's what I want to say. I think these are probably the only two out of all of those people that are at all somewhat genuine. And Katie does great work with all her international stuff, and Bree really tries.
Yeah, I think that's fair. So you sent us this message that Briahna posted, I guess, to her patrons or on YouTube somewhere, a response to a criticism. I fully respect your feeling this way. It's also true that I'm tired and demoralized. After doing episode after serious episode, I get this kind of feedback. On the rare occasion I stray in the slightest and do a light topic. You don't care about my personal life. Does it occur to you that I do care about my personal life, that I might want to express myself more broadly on my own show, that it feels constraining and tiresome to have to perform a limited sliver of my personality for years while suppressing 99% of who I am? It sometimes makes me want to leave the space altogether. I'm just being honest. To be clear, you're completely entitled to feel the way you feel, and I'm completely entitled to find something to do with my life that makes me feel valued, who knows what's next. Now, listen, people always talk about how Briahna is a Harvard-educated lawyer who could be off making big, big money instead of doing this. Well, that Bad Faith podcast makes a fuck ton of money. A ton of money. I don't even remember if I have this exactly right. I might be lowballing this because she took the patron subscriber count off of the public feed on the Patreon. Some patrons can, some content creators can actually publicize and list how many subscribers they have, how much money they're taking in per month. But she's making tens of thousands of dollars a month doing a podcast. I mean, my brother is a lawyer. My brother was into that big corporate law. He just quit. But he was making like, I don't know what he was making. He was doing very, very well, but he was working 70 hours a week doing just totally soul-crushing work.
Right.
She's doing tens of thousands of dollars a month recording a couple podcast episodes a week. That's not including what she makes on Rising. That's not including what she pulls in on YouTube. She's making a lot of money. And the fact that she's considering quitting because she's getting dragged on the internet, that is indicative, as Russell pointed out to me, and he's very much right about this, that is indicative of a class perspective as well.
Right.
You know, if a poor working class person fell ass backwards into making $30,000 a month doing podcast interviews, they wouldn't dream of fucking giving that up. they would not consider quitting because they're mean. We make $200 a week. We got people threatening to climb up to Russell's apartment and kick his ass. Right? And you know, we stick to it. There are times when Russell and I have wanted to quit doing the show, but we're like, damn, we could use that $300 a month patron money. I guess we got to keep going.
Exactly.
Yeah.
No, that's why I said Tusker sent that over. And as soon as I read it, I said, that's it. That's exactly what I want to say about this. The fact that you're making, Keaton said $35,000 a month, I guess, before she took it down. It said she was making $35,000.
It was either $35,000 or maybe it was even 35,000 subscribers, which would have been 100,000. Like Chapo does like 150 grand a month. Like they just do insane money.
Okay, so
I don't know what it is, but it's a lot. It's tens of thousands at least.
Okay,
sorry,
so,
Tusker, go ahead. Are you trying to get in?
Yeah, I was just gonna say.
Do you know?
No, I don't know because once again it's taken down. But I do think that there was a distinct drop after some of the Marianne coverage, and that might be one of the reasons why it's no longer up there. But I do.
But it was up there until fairly recently, and it was a huge number. I mean, it's a huge number.
It wasn't enough to drop below 20,000 a month, I don't think.
So this is it.
Yes, that's $250,000 a year doing 2 podcasts a week.
If your perspective is that that's even a question, that you might walk away from this gig where you're getting, let's say, $35,000 a month for the sake of argument. Let's say $10,000
right, exactly.
a month for the sake of argument. Okay. You're talking about walking away from a gig where you literally work less than 10 hours a week. And I understand you got to prep things and exhibits. We do that too. Let's say 20 hours. Okay. Let's say 20 hours and you're making $10,000 a month. The idea that you would even consider walking away from that because people are being mean to you on the internet, that is your class privilege. That is privilege. Because somebody who came up from under, they wouldn't even think about it. People are being mean to you. What did you think? You walked into a brothel, you're mad you're not finding a nunnery? You walked into podcasting, man. It's the internet. There's fucking nuts out there. There's one psycho who stalked me across 3 streams. Who am I? Who the fuck am I? We don't even have 10,000 subscribers, man.
Yeah.
So what is in your position? I mean, it comes with it. And if you're so lacking in fortitude, just toughness, that is going to get to you to that point. And if you feel like you can afford to give up that kind of money, well, then maybe that's shaping your perspective on third-party candidacies and whether it's appropriate to expect working people who cannot afford to give up thousands of dollars a month because somebody said mean shit to them in the chat, that maybe those people would get angry after getting burned twice by a campaign that you were, and I'm not blaming you, but you were involved in those campaigns. If anyone should know how this shit works, it's you. That's
Well,
why
not only
people.
that, Bree
That's
is a
why
third
people
party
are
voter.
angry.
She voted for Jill Stein in 2016.
Yeah.
I mean, this is part of the reason why people are frustrated with her because, she's not, a David Pacman type. She's not one of these blue no matter who people who will always fall in line at the end. So
Right,
it's like
right.
that's what makes it especially kind of frustrating.
Right. Really, the core of this is people who got burned by the Sanders campaigns, who took the DNC at their word when they said we could pick the candidate in a back room with cigars if we want to, so go fuck yourself. They said so. We're taking them at their word. That's what they said. It's what they said. It's not my words. It's their words. Okay. Well, so why? This is like the casino told you the dice are loaded and you want to go back and play. And not only that, you want to tell all your friends to go back and play at that casino. That's what's pissing people off.
Or to loan you money.
Or to loan you money to go back to the casino. Actually, you're right. That's a better metaphor.
Okay.
So that's what people are mad about. People aren't getting. They're not mad about a wedding. They're not mad that you went to a wedding. This whole thing is really centered on the idea that you guys, some of you, are turning around and telling people who got burned very hard on the Sanders campaigns, who really had their hearts broken, are really disappointed, who also, if it had just been a fair thing, I don't think people would feel that way. I know I wouldn't. I'd say, let's try again, right? People found out the game is rigged. You can't win. The house always wins. And you're trying to tell them to keep coming back to the casino. That's why they're mad. That's why I know I mean, in this particular case, I don't feel like you guys are doing it for dishonest reasons. But I think you have a lot of class privilege that is blinding you to, you don't even understand what people are angry about. That's privilege.
Right.
So think about that.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Tusker, any final words before we we'll let you go in the back room because we got to do one more segment. But go ahead.
Yeah, sure. I think one of the things that I would have to say, like, look, I don't like to be a theory bro. I don't like to. But that example of kind of like what I'd sent to Russell, and I was surprised that he was like, oh, okay, cool, I'll read it. That was written in 1935. If you guys really think that the left hasn't had these fights for years and years and years,
Marx and Engels themselves used to fight.
Yes,
they used to get drunk and come to blows.
Yes,
did they?
But,
they didn't get along fantastically well all the time. No, not at all. But the thing that leftist infighting is foundational in that way.
Oh yeah, it's inherent to being a leftist.
Yeah.
You have to have it. But the thing with it is that it's a new space. Everyone's trying to figure out the way. And I'm not saying everyone needs to go read theory, because here's the thing: working class people, they get it. They may not be able to use theory and go, oh, I've read Marx and Engels and blah, 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 and now I know exactly what it is. They have an inherent reaction to something. Right. So, I saw plenty, and I would say that most of Bree and Katie's audience is primarily kind of PMC. And so lots of times they don't recognize it. But even that audience can be like, no, this isn't a good look. They may not be able to really do analysis and really get down to the root of it, but there's an inherent reaction to this isn't right. That's what the working class, that's what you see in them. They experience something that happens in reality. They have an immediate reaction. I can tell you who theory is for. It's for the PMCs. And the PMCs are the exact people that roll their eyes and they go, I've already been taught everything that it is that I need to know about critical thinking, about history, about knowledge. I've been given the tools that my bourgeois intellectuals have taught me, and I have no need to learn anything else. I shouldn't look at people that are poorer than me and understand what it is that they have to say, because I've been taught by people that are educated and certified and, respected. You don't have to look at past revolutions, because that happened a long time ago and history never repeats itself. It doesn't rhyme either. And then you also don't have to look at foreign nations, because as much as you might want to stand up for the oppressed and all the identity politics things that you like to focus on so much, you're incredibly chauvinist when it comes to foreigners. They're backwards, they're stupid, they're barbarians, all that other type of stuff. So you just don't think you have anything left to learn. And that's not true. Theory is for the professional managerial class because they're the ones that have the fucking time
of course,
sit around and read. The working class is busting their fucking ass.
Right.
They don't need to read theory. They know when they hear it. They know when something is right or wrong.
Yeah, no, I agree. It's very well said. All right, Tusker. Well, thanks for the tip on that, and thanks for calling in. Always good to talk to you.
Thank you,
Thank you.
We'll see ya. All right, everybody. Please hit that like button. Please hit that subscribe button if you have not already. We're up to 8956. We're getting very, very close. Getting very, very close. Can we hit 9,000 by the end of the night? We are almost
9,000, 9,000.
All right, we have one more segment we got to do. Let's knock out some super chats here. Mad Crab, WeddingGate is real. Yes, indeed. I put WeddingGate in the title of this
Did you?
video. Yeah, and then I know the Vanguard boys apparently stole it for their clip that they put out, even though they don't watch us, right? Even though we suck. MAWAGE, marriage is what brings us together. Marriage is what brings us together. Okay, I got it. Excellent. Thank you, Robert. And thank you, Robert, for your help in this next segment. Robert is working on a lovely piece about David Miranda, the late, great David Miranda, which we're going to publish on our Substack soon, but he did send me some notes for this final segment, which we'll certainly incorporate into here. Dan Richmond, the F. Mary Kill game. Oh, boy, you're going to get us in trouble. I can't entertain this. Fake left edition. All right, well, that's your prerogative. I can't go there without getting in trouble, but thank you for the $9.99. Appreciate that. I am married, so I can't F anyone else anyway, and I can't marry anyone else, so that just leaves the killing, and I can't comment on that without getting in real trouble, but thank you for the $9.99.
We don't have to give them any excuses to demonetize us.
That's true, exactly. The Robear Network. I know it's just a game. Don't worry. No offense taken. The Robear Network, $4.99. Is Marianne still the queen of TikTok? Yeah, I don't know. I don't know how her presence is going on TikTok. They should have put some of the wedding videos up on TikTok. Maybe they'd have done well.
I mean, when they lower the voting age to 14.
Yeah, right. Exactly. Yeah. When they lower it to 14 and let robots vote, then she'll be in business. Damn you, DueDissidence. There are almost no podcasts left that I can listen to thanks to your great work. Oh, well, we're sorry about that. We apologize for spoiling the other podcasts for you. Thank you for listening. We appreciate you. Benjamin. I like that. It's a clever play on words for Benjamin. Thanks for the $5. Crystal and Kyle would never invite DueDissidence or RBN to their wedding if it was a who's who of grifters. No journalists of integrity were there. Listen, I don't think they know who we are, honestly. Is the current Democrat Party more right-wing than the current Republicans? Pro-war, pro-censorship, pro-mandates, pro-lockdowns? In terms of mandates and lockdowns,
it depends on what you're talking about.
Yeah, it depends on what you're talking about. In terms of the mandates and the lockdowns, I don't think that really fits neatly onto a left-right spectrum. In terms of war and censorship, yeah, they're absolutely to the right of the GOP nowadays on those issues.
Right. Absolutely. Not on abortion.
Right, exactly. The Robear Network. Crystal's ex-husband is a venture capitalist, and she is worth
$44 million.
Yeah, $40 million.
I just did an article about this. She's worth $44 million.
Yeah, but still asks for funding on BP. Yeah,
that's what I said in my article. I said, you know what? All these people are rich. They believe in this so much. Pay for it. Right. Pay for it. Leave us alone. Crystal has enough to live well for the rest of her life and fund RFK and Marianne. Both of them. You do that, we'll stop breaking your balls, I promise.
Right, exactly. Why is the left being led by PMC Harvard lawyers?
Well, Tusker just explained that.
Tusker explained that. Red Z, Dem infighting sounds like white girl problems. Yeah, indeed. Meteor Dreams again. Thanks for the $1.99. Bree is black, white in her attitudes. I mean, look, that I would not go as far as to say. Like, I understand what you're saying, but it is a class thing, and I don't like to mix. I don't like to mix metaphors in that way. Yeah.
I think Russell is a disaster finally marries ex-mom.
JR goes and tries to start shit on the Vanguard chat. I know.
You almost had your hooks in me, didn't you, dear? You nearly. Yeah, no, she wasn't all that. She wasn't good. She wasn't good enough.
She wasn't even memorable. It's just that,
She wasn't.
he popped up.
Yeah. That's the only I wouldn't even remember.
Jogged his memory, right?
When I got the letter, I said, "Who?"
Yeah. If you go back and watch Brie and Katie's Valentine's Day special, you will be stunned how much contempt they have for working class people. I don't know. I didn't watch that. I didn't watch that one. Thank you, long story short. Do you watch that one?
They buy fair trade.
I thought, long story
chocolate.
short, I thought you were like a DeSantis guy or a MAGA guy. So you're on the Brie and Katie list. That's pretty cool of you to seek out such viewpoint diverse content. Franklin Warsham for $1.99. Bernie was invited, but told Kyle to wait in the car. Yeah. This was not a super chat. I just think this is a hilarious piece of feedback. You guys are annoying. Well, if we're annoying, just turn it off. What do we do? What? We're in your living room?
I never understand.
What do you mean we're annoying you? You're watching us. You don't want to watch us? Turn it off.
I promise. Even if you invite us to your wedding, we're not coming.
We're not coming. Yeah, exactly. Here we go. Katie Halper is a martini liberal. Someone coined that. Yeah, there you go. Laugh. Thank you for the £5. FYI, I criticized Katie and Bree. Man, this is pulling them. This was really a hot topic. I understand why so many people are in here now. This thing is like really, people care a lot about this, huh? FYI, I criticized Katie and Bree on Twitter a year ago. Not contextualized. Bree blocked me. Katie engaged me in DMs. Yeah, I think Briahna blocks a lot of people. I know there's a lot of people who've been blocked by Briahna Joy Gray. Maybe we're next on the list. I don't know.
You know, I'm new to the whole Twitter thing. I will say that just by the nature of Twitter, yeah, man. I mean, you can attract. It's like if you're in this space, you're like a psycho magnet.
Yeah.
Like I don't even have a lot of Twitter followers, and if I'm active on Twitter for like a few hours, I get like 2 psychos like metal shavings just latch right onto me.
Yeah, no, you can catch them for sure. Darren Sweeney, thanks for the $10. That wedding photo, Dorkapalooza. Yeah. In Katie's defense, another $10. Thank you. Her dress at the wedding came from the Dukes of Hazzard collection. Oh, that's I don't know.
I don't even remember the dress.
I don't remember. I got rid of the photo here, so I couldn't tell you yes or no. But yeah, is that everything for Super Chats? Okay, that's everything for Super Chats. Okay, all right, folks. So we have one more segment that we're going to do this evening before we wrap up here. This was one that I really wanted to do. Once again, thanks to Robert Penner for sending us some materials on this. And Robert's going to write he's working on a piece that we're going to publish on our Substack about this. But
let me just say, there's somebody who dropped me like a credible message about writing for us. Dude, if you're listening, I've been busy, but I'll get back to you.
Okay, cool. Yeah, absolutely. Tragically, David Miranda, the trailblazing Brazilian socialist politician, obviously husband of Glenn Greenwald, passed away on the eve of his 38th birthday on Tuesday morning following a 9-month stint in the ICU for an abdominal infection. Glenn himself published just a really moving Twitter thread as a tribute to him the morning that he passed. So we're going to read through this here. It is with the most profound sadness that I announce the passing away of my husband, David Miranda. He would have turned 38 tomorrow. His death early this morning came after a 9-month battle in the ICU. He died in full peace, surrounded by our children and family and friends. There he is. There's him with the family. One of the things that Robert mentioned is that David really convinced Glenn to adopt children, which is something that Glenn was always hesitant to do. But Glenn talks about how, he really taught him to be a great dad. They adopted mixed race kids who were from an orphanage themselves, so who had a difficult upbringing, and obviously gave them a wonderful life. Glenn goes on to say David's life was extraordinary in all ways. His mother died when he was 5, leaving him an orphan in Yakharazin. I think that's how you pronounce that. But a beautiful and compassionate neighbor, Donna Elian, took him in despite 4 children of her own and deep poverty, became his mom, and gave him a chance for life. That gave David the chance to live his full potential in a society that often suffocates it. He was key to the Snowden story, became the first gay man elected to Rio's city council, then federal Congress at age 32. He inspired so many with his biography, his passion, and force for life. Here he is with Edward Snowden here. Here he is in a clash with police. Because of how David grew up, there were always many assumptions made by those who didn't know him. Anyone who did will tell you there was nobody with a stronger will or life force. He was proud that he was named by Time, our next generation's leaders. But by far, David's biggest dream, what gave him the greatest pride and purpose, was being a father. He was the most dedicated and loving parent. He taught me how to be a father. And our truly exceptional boys, with their own difficult start to life, is his greatest legacy. This is just really a heartbreaker. I mean, it's just a gutting story with these 2 kids who they adopted at a young age. They had an animal sanctuary, a dog sanctuary, where they actually had homeless people care for dogs at their sanctuary to give homeless people some like work experience so that they can go get jobs in the field themselves. Edward Snowden, Greenwald mentioned that Snowden was very, very grateful to David, and Snowden actually put out a tweet himself here. Heartbreaking news of everyone who had a hand in the 2013 revelations of global mass surveillance. My dear friend David Miranda was perhaps the most righteous and pure. I will never forget that when the UK broke its own laws to detain David as a terrorist for daring to aid an act of journalism and threatened to throw him in a dungeon for the rest of his life, he never faltered. Instead, he dared them to do it. It was that courage that set him free, that courage that moved the story forward, that will forever serve as the example of a man at his best. I will miss you, David. Stay free. So what he is referring to, of course, is in 2013, after Glenn Greenwald published the Snowden leaks, Miranda worked with a global human rights group to gather signatures for Brazil to grant asylum to Edward Snowden, saying, quote, this is the quote that David gave about Edward Snowden, he deserves thanks for what he's done, not a life in prison. Now, after that effort failed and Snowden fled to Russia, Miranda was held and questioned at a London airport for 9 hours while having Snowden-related materials on his person. He was on a flight from Berlin back to Rio with, I guess, a transfer in London, and he was held there for 9 hours, questioned, had his materials taken from him, and was threatened with detention at Guantanamo Bay. When he arrived back in Rio after that episode, Glenn was waiting for him, and here is video of that in 2013 explaining to reporters what happened.
Fiquei numa sala, tiveram 6 agentes diferentes que eles estavam entrando e saindo, falando comigo, me fizeram perguntas sobre minha vida inteira, sobre tudo, levaram meu computador, videogame, celular, meus memory cards que estavam tudo.
Eu vou fazer a reportagem com muito mais agressão do que antes. Eu vou publicar muito mais documentos do que antes. Eu vou publicar muitas coisas sobre a Inglaterra também. Eu tenho muitos documentos sobre o sistema de espionagem da Inglaterra. Agora meu foco vou ficar lá também. E acho que eles vão arrepender que eles fizeram.
Now, in 2016, an English court ruled based on this case that a key provision of its Terrorism Act of 2000 was incompatible with human rights. This was the Stop Power provision, the court said that the stop power, if used in respect of journalistic information or material, is incompatible with Article 10, which is freedom of expression of the European Convention on Human Rights. So off of the heels of that, Miranda then began a political career in Brazil, first being elected to Rio's city council in 2016, the first openly gay man to serve in that role. Now, in 2019, an openly gay member of the Brazilian Congress fled the country due to repeated death threats. And after he fled, the Socialism and Liberty Party appointed Miranda as his replacement. Miranda stepped up, knowing, like I said, that the previous gay member of Congress had had his life threatened to the point where he fled the country. Jair Bolsonaro, of course, gloated at the resignation of this former politician, Jean Willis. He tweeted out on that day that he resigned, "Grande dia, grand day, happy day."
Great day, yeah.
Great day. And then David tweeted back at him, "Respect Jean Jair and hold your excitement. One LGBT comes out, but another comes in, and that one comes from Yakrazine, another one who approved more projects in 2 years than you did in 28. See you in Brasilia." So obviously David's life was one of immense courage. David and Glenn are obviously two extraordinarily brave people who obviously found a lot of courage and strength in each other and built a beautiful life together, gave a beautiful life to these kids. And so this is just a terrible, terrible loss. It's really tragic. And I remember when he was hospitalized in August, Glenn Greenwald, he tweeted out that, he wasn't expected to make it through the week. And he fought for 9 months. And when you look at all that Glenn has done in these past 9 months with all the writing and the launching of the Rumble show and all of this, with all this turmoil going on, the backbone of these guys is just incredible. I mean, these are two really brave and tough as nails people who, like I said, obviously found something in each other that gave them a lot of strength to move on. These guys fought some very, very important battles against some very powerful people who really hated their guts. Mm-hmm. They sprung, the amount of money they've had to spend on security. They basically lived in a compound in Brazil. Everything I just talked about was before Greenwald exposed the Bolsonaro government and then had the Bolsonaro government come after them. These guys are true dissident voices. And, to have him mount those kinds of struggles, a guy of such bravery, such strength, and such courage, to have him taken down by an infection, it's just like, oh man, like I'm not a religious person, and this is one of the things that baffles me about religion, but it's also one of the things that I kind of admire about religious people. It's like to even try and make moral sense of a world that can take a guy like David Miranda at 37, after all he's been through, can take him away from us with a bug that gets in his gut and spreads into his bloodstream. Where's the justice in that? Where's the meaning in that? It's just a gutting thing. But obviously, all love and well wishes to the family.
Well, and when you look at that story and you look at Glenn's story and you look at what they've both done, it really speaks to the corruption of our age, that they're not only not heroes in this country, but particularly Glenn is vilified in this country. You had idiots who have so little understanding of the situation and are so brainwashed by their media that they actually made the statement that Glenn Greenwald must be disappointed when Lula, who he got freed from prison, was elected.
Right, was elected president again. Yeah.
It's really a case of a prophet hath no honor in his own country. It's just, it's one of those things. It's hard to make sense of a moral universe, right? Or to conceive of a moral universe where a guy like this who would overcome so much, that would happen to him. You know, this would never happen to Peter Ducey. You know, this would never happen to Joy Reid. It reminds me of the old Dennis Leary bit. He used to say, you know, it's always the best people. You know, John Lennon, he's gone. Motley Crue could spend all weekend in a room full of crack, and they'd walk out another double live album. Right. Like only the best people, only the good die young. Right. I mean, this would
I saw a lot of people tweet that exact thing. Yeah.
You know, I mean, it's just it's a horrible tragedy, and the fact that Glenn has not missed a beat through all of this is amazing. I hope he takes a step back for a while and takes some time for himself now.
Yeah, I mean, he has had to step back a little bit in terms of like the weekly Rumble schedules to deal with this stuff, as is obviously more than understandable. But I mean, despite those setbacks, look at the output during this time. I mean, it's just incredibly traumatic and difficult time, especially with 2 kids. You know, so it's just it's a horrible thing, but David's life was, you know, truly a dissident life, truly a life well lived, albeit far, far, far too short. And so we obviously, you know, wish Mr. Greenwald and the family obviously all the best. All righty, I think
the real dissidents,
indeed. All right. Let's take another super chat here. And get out of here. David was not the first gay socialist in Rio City Council, but one woman, Mariella, was murdered in public by the police. Yeah, did I say the first? I thought he was. Did I say the first gay person or the first gay man? I think he was the first gay man. Maybe I misspoke there. But yeah, that was in Robert's notes actually. So he was the first gay man elected. I'm sorry if I misspoke there. She was murdered in public. That is the size of Dee's courage. Yes, indeed. And Robert, who provided us with some notes for this segment, like I said, is writing a segment on this that we are going to publish on our Substack. And so you'll be able to hear more about this. But that is our show for the evening, folks. I believe that is everything we got. All right, everybody. Well, thank you so much for watching. We hope you had a great time with us, and we will be back here on Sunday. Oh, I did say first gay man. Okay. All right. Thank you, Robert. We will be back here on Sunday. That is what is that? That's the 14th. That's Mother's Day. We'll be on for Mother's Day. Maybe I'll bring Amanda on, bring the wife on to say a little Mother's Day hello. Yeah, why not? Why not? So you guys will all get to meet the missus, and we appreciate all the moms out there. Shout out to all of you. We will see you on Monday. We'll have some flowers for you. But thank you guys very much for being here tonight.
We got a last-minute super chat there.
Oh, we got a last-minute super chat here from Darren. Thanks for the info on David Miranda. Never knew. Glenn doesn't wave his own flag. May Glenn and his children a measure of peace. Absolutely. Yeah, no, I mean, he didn't talk about his personal life that much. He almost never talked about it on the air. I mean, he wrote a couple of Substack pieces keeping people updated on David's health, and he would tweet about it from time to time. But yeah, in terms of the work output, he just kind of kept going.
Never missed a beat. You never would have known.
Yeah. Unless you followed him on Twitter or Substack, which, you know, I did. Just from watching those shows. Absolutely.
Honestly, I heard a while back about his husband being in the hospital because of Glenn's output. I assumed he got better.
You assumed he got better. Yeah. Well, that's the thing, man. When you're young, you always kind of assume someone's going to pull through, but this was sepsis. I mean, it got into the blood, and I guess the life expectancy for that is a lot shorter than David lasted. Like I said, the doctors originally didn't expect him to make it through the week. Now 9 months later, just a horrible story, just a tragic thing. But anyway, want to send our well wishes out there. Guys, thank you very much for being here. We will see you back here on Sunday. In the meantime, of course, be safe and be well.
Courage.